starting at 7:06, by the way. Roll call is Allen is absent with notice. Broughton.
Here.
Darnell is absent with notice. DePalma.
Here.
Cordella.
Here.
Marshall.
Here.
Thurman is absent with notice.
So we've seen the agenda. Everyone's seen it already. It's short. It's really just trying to update the homeowners or anyone who's interested in what's going on with our amendments, our proposed amendments. So I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion by Broughton, seconded by Marshall.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Yes. Good.
So the new business.
We've already done that. We're really ready for, as we'll start the meeting just like we've done every other meeting. You all can come up and speak. We're really only talking about this agenda tonight. We're not talking about, when the meeting's over, if you want to talk about something else, we can. But for right now, we're going to focus on the agenda. So anything that you guys would like to come up and say, it'll be recorded. I don't think it'll be posted on YouTube, but at least you guys can see yourselves. If you want, you can come in and ask for a copy of the CD, or the DVD, I should say.
And the reason we wanted to make it a public meeting was that way any or all of us could be here. Because the first time it was going to just be 3 of the board members with you guys. And I know if I would have been in town when it was scheduled, I would have wanted to have been there. Then it would have been 4. Then it needs to be an open meeting because there's more than 3 of us. Because if there's ever more than 3 of us, we have a quorum and we have to make it a public meeting. So that's why we made it into a public meeting. Plus then, all of the residents know what we're doing. We want to be transparent. We don't want to just schedule a meeting with somebody and nobody else know what's going on. So this way it becomes televised. If they televise it.
No, they won't.
Yeah, but it just, that way it's more transparent. Everybody knows what we're doing. And that way, as many of the board members who want to be here can be here. So that's why we were trying to make it public, so we could all be here who wanted to be here.
Mr. Chair, if I could suggest, like that, Mr. Chair. We have 3 minutes per person. There's a limited number of people here. So I'd like to recommend if somebody goes their 3 minutes and wants to speak again, once everybody else is gone, they can come back up.
I want to be looking at any clock.
Okay, all right.
Does anyone?
Okay. Feel free to start.
Somebody's got to start. That's fine.
Probably would just be a table.
Yeah.
Well, that would have been.
Okay. So I've got your.
I need a name, I'm sorry.
I'm Tracy Moore. Name and address. So, and maybe I'm interpreting this wrong, but I just want to make sure I'm on the same page that all of you are. So when I look at this,
What are you looking at?
this is the update.
Okay, the amendment.
So it says that it's adult foster care small group home licensed for 7 or more adults, but not more than 12 adults. Do you know why that is? I mean, shouldn't it be 6 and under?
We're gonna ask that question.
Okay.
We didn't see this until yesterday ourselves, but really that's the definition for an adult foster care small facility. According to Michigan, it's 6 and under. So using the word large, we have to make sure we're clear on what we're talking about here, because a small adult foster care is 6 or less. A large is greater than 6.
Okay. So you think that's messed up? Right, I mean, you think there's a mistake?
I don't know if it's purposeful or not. One thing that we have to be careful of, there's a difference between what we want to do and what we can do as far as the state of Michigan
Yeah,
goes.
but if you guys look at your charter, so Brandon's charter, section 46, it's on page 6. You guys have it, your foster care small group home adult needs a facility with the approved capacity to receive 12 or fewer adults. So I mean, it's in your section, it's in your section 46. I don't understand why it's not come over, or why it's changed here.
I don't know. But it's a good question. We're taking notes. It's a good question to ask.
You know what part of 46?
I can get it.
What did you decide? You decided
Brandon,
Ordinance. 46.
It's section 46, it's on page 6. then I know Bill was concerned about the Michigan building code. And so I asked him to send me his information as well. And even in his code, so the Michigan building code is 310.5.1. It's the same thing, adult foster care family or adult foster care small group homes for 6 or fewer persons. It's the same thing. So I don't feel like we're making it up. I mean, it's there.
Right.
And then it's also in the Michigan, chapter 400, section 7. And it's got our wording for Brandon, 12 or fewer.
I'm sorry, it's chapter 400.
Yeah, I can send you my notes if you want.
That'd be perfect, yeah.
So I guess that was my first concern with this. The second is I'm just wondering, can we go in more detail? I mean, when you look at Orion zoning, it's way more detailed than this.
She says Grand Blanc.
So you didn't send us the Orient.
Yeah,
But I reviewed it last night.
Yeah, that was the second one here, it's right after Grand Blanc. Oregon.
But the Orion would have been the very first one before we
Well,
did it.
Grand Blanc is the first one, then Oregon. But, and I had questions too, and bring up the questions since are we? Okay, all right. Because in some of them as well, and I'm not an attorney, I don't even play one on TV, but there's some things in there I really question. Like some of them are limiting it to the number of hours they can even be open.
I saw that too.
See, the way I read it is there's a difference between adult foster care full-time and just daycare. They also have adult foster daycare. And so that's what Grand Blanc was referring to, is their daycare systems, whether it's child care or adult care. Whatever that.
All right.
So Grand Blancs is not a good example to move forward with, but Lake Orion is a little bit closer to what we're trying to accomplish.
I'm sorry.
In Orion, so Orion, you see it's an owner-occupied facility. And so they're saying the owner actually has to live there. And I
Yeah.
think,
So is Rochester Hills.
yeah, and if you look at their density, I think that's why. I mean, R23 versus their 7.
Rochester Hills handles it in the definitions sections of their ordinance, where if you go down to the very bottom, Rochester Hills, they say the proprietor or the owner of the license shall be a member of / resident of the home. Now, whether or not they're actually enforcing that though, I don't know. It's nice to have that in the local ordinances, but when you read Michigan ordinances, they say these ordinances supersede any local ordinances.
Yeah, but they're not much different than any of these.
Well, that's where, please don't confuse us with attorneys, because we're not.
Well, and I think that's part of the concern is it might be in their ordinance, but is it, if someone challenged it, is it enforceable? Can you force the owner to have to live there? Could the state come back and say no because it's not in their ordinance, so we're making it, so the state ordinance rules. And if our ordinance says something, is it enforceable, or is the state gonna come back and say, no, you can't enforce that, this rule?
Yeah, but did you read Lara's letter? It seems like they let you guys have control. I mean, that's how I read that letter. I mean, they didn't want to take responsibility, and Kathy's responded in her letter, right? They said that the township has the right, the township controls who goes in that house, that the licensing agency does.
I think that's within the bounds of what the state law will allow us to do, though. I mean, that's what I thought when I read it, but I have another whole thing.
When a question, these certain questions come up, will they be in the notes then?
It's not verbatim, forgive me, it's not verbatim, but the question is,
But this is a little different. In other
It is
words, we want the
rel-
other 3 board members to be able to see what these questions were that have been asked.
for instance, you know, what I have written so far is the amendment says that 7 or more, but not more than 12 persons. Do we know why it is not limited to 6 and under? Also, Mr. Jenner was concerned about the Michigan Building Code. And I am concerned that the verbiage is not consistent, and I'd like to see way more detail put into the ordinance, is what I have.
When you email your notes to me, could you email them also to Kathy and Courtney? Can you put those in the?
I don't add things into
Okay.
the minutes,
Do you?
but the Candy's office adds, like,
Oh, okay.
if there's something to be added, it gets sent to
Okay.
Lisa, and Lisa inserts it right into the minutes.
All right.
So if it is the board's decision that it should be added into the minutes, then it can certainly be done by, in this instance, it's just hard because like I can't make the decision what is added.
Right.
So I can't say, sure, send it to me and I'll add it.
Do you want me
Well-
to hand you stuff?
I
Don't
can.
worry about
Yeah.
that, just any questions that get asked, I wanna make sure that
Do you,
we're getting.
do you feel that what I just read is the questions that you have asked thus far?
Sort of.
Or did I miss one?
I think you're good. I mean, I just feel that we should be more stringent. I feel other ordinances are, and I guess my question is why aren't we?
Make sure your notes get to me, and I'll follow along with who has to get them.
Yeah, because in Oregon, it also says that they can't be located within 1,500 feet of resident homes. Not just.
Yeah, I read that, if you read that again, that one sentence that they have, that it's like item 4 of 4 bullet points that they put there, I've got it here. They're talking about a correctional facility, I read that. It's, again, it's for an attorney to interpret. I actually took a snapshot of that, because I saw that too, Tracy, and I
And it says similar facility though,
Yeah.
because it says correction center,
Exactly,
resident
yeah.
home, halfway
That's
house,
exactly
or a
right.
similar facility. So in that area, they're talking about not general residence homes, but a resident home of that.
The actual
nature
bullet point
of a
D, the
correctional
fourth
facility.
item, it
Yeah.
says, what, this is saying what a new adult foster care home cannot be near. And the fourth bullet point, item D, it says a community correction center, comma, resident home, comma, halfway house, or similar facility. And I think that term resident home in this case is, I misunderstood that as well, but I think they're talking about some kind of correctional type place where these people are living.
Right, because you got halfway, it's in between
Yes.
the term halfway house and correctional center and then other similar facility. And to me, a halfway house and correctional center is the same meaning. And something resident home must mean something that's same.
Because in
type of
theory,
residence
if you were to, take that to its logical conclusion, then pretty much you couldn't open an adult foster care in Brandon Township unless you lived on 2.5 acres or 5 acres or more.
Why do you think Lake Oregon has such a low
The answer to that.
Well, because they're saying that they can't be within, you can't have them within 1,500 feet of each other.
But then there's, with Oregon is also saying, right, it has to be owner occupied.
Where do they say that?
In their zoning ordinance 78,
Oh, it's not on that page.
under adult foster care, small group home.
And again, that's where I think we need to find out if that is enforceable or not. Does the state allow you to say that?
Do you guys want this stuff?
I do, or if you email it to me, however you want to do it. Whatever easiest for you.
Stick it right in there so you won't lose it. No, but you would.
I'm not the most organized person in the world, no.
You're welcome.
So your main things that you'd like to see is about living in the home and why this is 7 or more instead of, why it's 7 to 12 instead of 12 and under.
Yeah. And then the 1,500 feet.
And then the 1,500 feet, well, that's with the 1,500 feet is what
It's
that's
in there,
talking
yeah.
about.
You asked why the density is higher or lower?
The density is lower in Lake Oregon.
Why are there fewer facilities?
It's about double in Grand Township. Lower double.
And I brought charts, maybe now's not the time to do that.
Please.
Oh, did I give you that?
Yeah, at least I.
Okay, that's fine, yeah. So I think, Diane, you wanted to talk about the emergency organization? Can Diane speak from here? Diane Burley? So now my main question is with a house for sale on the street now directly across from them, what can we put in immediately to keep this man from purchasing that home and setting up another group home on our street?
I would think the one step that we already have, and let me preface this by saying, I'm not entirely certain that those amendments should be the extent of what we do. I think it's a starting point. So I think one of the questions I would like to ask is this something we want to do right away? So for instance, to keep another house from being right across the street.
Right, because this isn't even going to be, my understanding is this isn't even going before the planning commission until August 28th.
I know.
So we have a whole month. That's a beautiful home that he could.
Well, you
Okay.
know, can we take
So
a step
can
back? Can we just,
explain the
let's,
rules
yeah,
of-
let's stop saying he, let's say any company that wants to open
Okay,
adult
any
foster
company.
care there.
Yeah.
Let's stay away from mentioning company names or
Right.
personal names.
But can we
Well,
talk
how-
about?
yeah, but how can we talk about, because I view it, as a trustee, I would view that as a problem if we all of a sudden just have a density of group homes in a small area, and especially in your cul-de-sac.
Right.
I view that as an issue. What can we do to stop it right now? I'm sorry to say, I think the answer is nothing. But we're working towards something. And I think that what I've seen in the ordinances for other Rochester Hills, Tracy says it's in Lake Orange, I didn't see theirs. But, you know, at some point, are we gonna start having a requirement for people to actually live in the home that they're gonna run? Instead of, these companies, it's just a big profit, you know, venture where they just open up as many homes as they can, shove people in there and throw $10 an hour people to work for them and, you know.
Well, we're unique. I'm sure, I know the three of you know where we're located. I mean, we're a dead end off of dead end. So the amount of traffic that goes up and down the streets, it's just increased so much. We can't handle, I mean, we can't even really handle this and that, not to mention if we end up with another one, which was, you know, a goal of a person that I'm not allowed to mention, you know, so, I mean, we had to call the police Sunday night. They were out in the driveway and we couldn't tell if it was the employees, the residents, or a combination of the both, but there was yelling and hollering, and I was in the house and could hear it. My husband was in the barn sawing and could hear it and came running. The neighbors down on the other dead-end street drove up. A lot of foul language, a lot of screaming, a lot of hollering, a lot of threats. Were they joking? We don't know.
Did you guys call? Did you guys make a
Oh,
call?
yeah, we called. It's documented. The police came. We don't, I'm sure they just said, oh, yeah, everything's fine,
Is
but.
that the complaint number that you referenced in that email to me?
No,
Oh,
that's,
That was you, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So that was, okay. Because I hadn't heard
That's
anything about it, so that
That's
was
a
the
different
first.
one.
that's different.
Okay, so since you're asking right now, let me explain now, I don't know how long it takes to draft the ordinance. You know, we got the research, got the ordinance drafted. Once an ordinance comes to the township though, it has to be posted in the paper 15 days before the planning commission can hold a public hearing on an ordinance. So, the planning commission has 15 days from the time they got it.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry.
15 days, no. So 15 days, it has to be posted about a public hearing for an ordinance amendment or any ordinance. So it has to be 15 days in the paper. So it has to get posted 15 days. Paper deadline is a Wednesday to go out on a Saturday, which means then from that Saturday, it has to be 15 days before the meeting can be held. Then once they hold the public hearing from the planning commission and vote yes, that they want to send it on, then it will be at our next meeting.
Right.
And then from our meeting, we have to have 2 readings. And this is just the way that every ordinance and law is done, so we don't put in, I know everybody's for this one, but what if there was something we didn't want? What if there was something we wanted to pass that we didn't have to follow those rules? The residents wouldn't be too happy. So there has to be rules to put into place, so when we are doing something, the residents have fair say to come to the public hearing have a first reading by the township, have a second reading by the township before something's passed, so the public has plenty of time to come in. Just because we know you guys are okay with us doing this doesn't mean everybody is. Or if we didn't have those rules in place, we could put in a lot of stuff that you might not like at all. So I know this is one you're for, but we still have to follow the rules even though.
Which I
you're for.
understand, so now we're talking September, I
No,
mean,
but
end
then
of
I don't know how else we
September.
can do it
The
any
ordinance,
faster
the
though.
ordinance also then takes effect, it's either 30 or 60 days after approval by the township board.
Which
But I don't know
means
how we
his-
can make it any faster though,
Right,
because
you
those are
can't
the
by
rules
law.
into place. So that's the problem with.
Then he gets his permanent license in October, so.
Well, that has nothing to do
And
with.
there's nothing we're gonna do to get him out, whether we change this ordinance, there's nothing.
The
we're gonna
ordinance
do
really
to get
doesn't have
him.
anything to do with the current place anyways,
Right.
because that's not, this ordinance doesn't change anything to do with that current place.
But it would
That's
help us
stopping
for
from an-
houses for sale on our street.
For something else in the future, yes. And I
You
know,
know-
I mean, those are the rules
Emergency,
that, I
anything
mean,
that can go in, or?
No, it's not sorry.
There's no emergency, anything that can be put in place?
I don't know of anything. That would be a question for Kathy or for
She's
Bill.
been asked that question. She's been
I
asked
thought the only
that.
thing we could possibly do was have
I'm sure
a
there's.
faster meeting for the second reading.
We can, which we would
Yeah.
not, we would after our September 4th, if we all
But-
say yes to it, which.
But that doesn't
wouldn't.
expedite it up to that point any
Right.
faster.
Kathy's already indicated that we are going to do that. We're
We
gonna
are going to do
expedite
a
that.
special
Oh,
meeting.
And you'd still have to wait a certain number of days.
Right.
But I
You
thought
know,
they go into effect
it just-
immediately.
It's my understanding, it's usually, there's like a 30-day window, like it's usually takes effect 30 days after an ordinance is passed. Now, this understanding that this ordinance there could be a difference in this type of an ordinance because you have zoning and you have regulation. So there could be a difference in this type of ordinance.
And this is an
I
amendment.
apologize, I'm the recording secretary for the planning commission and the zoning board of appeals as well, so I've been doing that for 7 years now, so. But understanding that there's two different types of ordinances, zoning and regulatory. Typically, in the ordinances that we've dealt with in the past, there's usually a window, I believe it's 30 days, but I'm not 100% on that because I just do the minutes, but where it takes effect 30 days after approval. And that is to give the township time to make it known to the public that this change is going into effect and there's different things like that that have to be done. Again, with this ordinance in particular, I'm not well studied in this. I literally found out about this today. So I can't say for sure that that is true for this particular ordinance.
You know, something to consider, I think, when we're talking about timeframes is I learned something in reading the Michigan code. Now, we're not talking about our local code, but the actual, Michigan refers to it as Adult Foster Care Facility Licensing Act, which I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with. But I just I took some time and actually read it all, just hoping to find some magic bullet, which I did not. But I learned something here in their section 400.732. The licensing agency, which I'm assuming is Laura,
Yes.
they're required to notify the clerk of our township 45 days before the issuance of a license, okay? So I don't know if they mean the temporary license or the permanent license, because in the second paragraph, it says the department shall notify the clerk of all newly licensed adult foster care facilities within 30 days after the issuance of a license. So I don't know if they're actually giving that up. Are they giving us that information?
Can I speak upon that?
Go ahead,
Okay,
I'm
so
done.
I was talking to them when we were in Lansing about that.
Yeah.
And I was questioning the first one because I had already asked that question. And that is when they told me I needed to go look at a court case that took place. And then Riley's office did forward me that court case. So that court case said that first one, that they need to let us know ahead of time, that is like a violation of the fair stand, of some act. So per me reading the court case, Lara does not have to do that anymore, even though Michigan has not
Okay,
changed.
why I asked.
Now, the second part of that, the 30 days after, they still have to do that, and they did do that. The Wednesday after you guys all came to us, I received a copy through email from Candy, the letter from Lara saying this license was issued on April 25th. So we got it within our 30 days after, but it was after the fact. And there's some court case that was out there federally that stops the first one. But now that's the standards, that's the legislation that I read. That is the question that I have for Lara. Back
Sorry,
to
Dana,
the complaint.
I missed that conversation.
No, that's okay, if you didn't understand what, it's
Well,
all the legal
there was
jumbles,
so
yes.
much going on, so I'm sorry I missed
No,
that.
that's okay, but it's good for the rest of people to hear if they've read that act and wonder. But in that act is where my question is, back to Lara, based on the investigation. Because that's section, whatever, if you read the, 400.713. That's where the big question comes in of what one says in Lara that they can do it, and in our investigation, they make it sound like they can't, that they're not supposed to be putting in people from correctional facilities. I was sitting here as you were talking, trying to look up how ordinances are passed on our website. I can't put my finger on it right now to see if this is an amendment, if it could be done quicker than so many days after, or if there's an emergency thing, and there's nothing that I know of, so that would be more of a question for Stuart or Kathy.
Okay, that question, I know Brad has put that question out there numerous times, and it's just never been addressed. We've never been given a concrete answer to it.
I can tell you this, that as of now, the wheels are in motion. But the way I read these two ordinances, it wouldn't solve a problem on your cul-de-sac anyways, because this only deals with group homes for 7 or greater. So even if this was passed tomorrow, it doesn't solve the problem there, or in any residential area in the township, because it only deals with larger group homes, 7 or more. The way I read these ordinances, and again, I'm not an attorney, I could be reading them wrong.
But it says small, so the question is what is our ordinance?
And
define
that's the
small
question that
as?
Tracy had asked. There
Right.
seems to be some discrepancy of, there's two different wordings going on within the ordinance. And that does need to be cleared up if we can get that answer quicker than, a month and a half from now.
What constitutes a small versus large?
And the
In
other
our
thing
ordinance,
that
right?
I think maybe everyone here, you're welcome to go to the planning commission meetings too. Those are public meetings that you can go to.
Yeah,
And I would
August
think in this
28th,
case,
I would.
it would probably be a good idea for some of you to go to it.
There won't be this type of discussion at those meetings.
Yeah.
It's not the same type of setting.
But
Just
they
so
can-
they're
but they
aware
can still
before
go.
they go.
But
Right.
there is a.
There is a
citizen
public
comment, right?
hearing.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
if it is a public hearing, there is a public hearing portion where you will be welcome to speak.
So
But
if
it's
it's
not,
not a public hearing, then you cannot speak?
No, you can speak at the planning commission, don't they have right to speak at the beginning and at the end like we
No.
do? But it's gonna be, the 28th is going to be a public hearing on this ordinance. You will be able to
Right.
speak. Anytime they're trying to pass an ordinance, or not pass, because they don't pass, but they
Approve.
approve an ordinance to come to the board,
recommend.
to recommend to the board, they have a public hearing. And then we have first and second readings. That way, the township has plenty of time to come in to speak on these. Obviously, the sooner you speak, the better the more of a change can happen, because by the time, changes can happen though up to second reading, obviously, too.
It doesn't mean you don't have a word with them though, because you could write an email
yes.
to them to read before the meeting. So it's kind of the same thing as you get up and speaking into the microphone.
And
But
my
I definitely
apologies.
avail yourselves of that.
My apologies, I just didn't want them to
No,
think that it would
tonight,
be the same kind of situation. It's not where, like at a township meeting, you have citizens' comments at the beginning and then citizens' comments at the end. It is, if it is a public hearing, there will be a certain part of the meeting that is devoted to, citizens' comments. It's called something different, I don't have my meeting minutes in front of me to say exactly, but they open the public hearing, hear the comments. There is no back and forth. Typically, there is no back and forth, but you will be heard. They will take you, there is a great group of people. You will not fall on deaf ears. So certainly with them encouraging you to go, I would definitely show up. It's just, I don't want you to think it's the same kind of
but they can
a
send an email
situation.
ahead of time.
You
You
can
can send an
absolutely
email
send
ahead of
an
time
email
with
to
your
them.
concerns too.
Now, Scott and Dana, you're going and meeting with Laura and everything. We never really, I mean, we got a little bit of a general overview of what happened.
That's kind of, that's good to hear, because that's
is
part of
there-
the reason for today's
Is
meeting.
there something that you can add or any information you can give to us or enlighten us on that meeting a little bit?
I'll say this up front, Jake did a really good job at that meeting. I know they're not there anymore, but he did a really good job in that meeting representing you guys, the homeowners. Dana will probably have a lot more to say than me. I kind of walked away from that meeting feeling that, yeah, they took the meeting, but there really wasn't going to be much action other than them taking the meeting. Go ahead.
I walked away thinking that they realized that they went about it wrong. The Department of Corrections actually said, this home we opened had errors. It did not happen correctly. And then they started to talk about something else, and I realized that then I tried to circle back to it, and I questioned him on what the errors were. And he started to answer me, but then they didn't really want to continue. Like they said, the homeowner was supposed to come in and talk to everybody, let them know what's going on, and make you guys aware, to make you guys so everybody would be welcoming, basically. I tried to explain to them the area it was in, that it's far away from any type of public transportation, any type of anything for the people to become rehabilitated into society if that's what they were trying to do. Try to explain that we know that when someone has served their time and is released, that they have a right to live somewhere, and they need to live somewhere. You know, we weren't against that. I was telling them, I just said that they need to look into the areas and that this was a greatly wooded area where no place for them to try to walk to a job or catch a bus or something.
They did say though, although they wouldn't provide it in writing, which I'm sure Jake has told you guys at least this much, they won't provide it in writing, but they said they have no, you know, take this for what it's worth, they have no plan of moving any further people that have been released from prison into that home.
But don't they, is it my understanding that the Department of Corrections isn't releasing them directly to, there's
Okay.
another,
What there is, okay, so I
contract.
understood the whole,
Right.
so they also told me they were only gonna place 3 people there, that their company, so they have a third party, someone in the middle. And so what it is when people are released from prison, so many percent has to go back to Oakland County, so many percent has to go back to Wayne, Genesee County. It all depends on how much is flowing in. That percentage flows back to that county when they are released. Doesn't matter where you're from. When they have to be on parole. So the parolees found out. Oakland County Sheriff actually does have a way to find out when people are released back into the township. So we do have Glover checking that list now. I don't know how often, maybe on a monthly basis, but Glover is, the Oakland County Sheriff's Department is checking that list if anybody is released into our township, so we will know now.
Were they not checking it before?
I'm not sure. I think we thought they were providing it to us. I'm not sure. All I know is that list is being checked. And it's not like they're coming here all the time, so it's not, I think they always thought that they were gonna be telling us, but that wasn't happening. But it's not like they're released to Brandon Township all the time.
Do we know that? We don't know that.
Well,
Yeah,
Glover's
who would
checked
know?
and there's been nobody, so I don't wanna get into the past. What I'm trying to do is fix the future. What happened in the past happened in the past. Let's fix the future now. So I don't wanna talk about who didn't do what and who should have been doing what. So there's a company that they hire, and I found them on the website of Department of Corrections that won the bid. So this company then is to find the home, and so they're the ones that work with the different foster care places or wherever they're gonna, halfway house or facility. And so they're the ones that really place them, but the Department of Corrections do know where they're going because the parolee knows and the parole officer knows. And so they know where they're going. Do they check out the home the parole officer has? But, So that's kind of how the process works. They said that there was errors in this process. They said they wouldn't put any more in, and I do believe them. But now, the Department of Corrections and Laura thinks that we are interpreting the law wrong. That the law does not read that. They say that, so they feel that they can put people released from correctional facilities into residential group homes. But when I read the law in an investigation report from Laura, it makes it sound like you cannot put them into a residential AFC, only a commercial AFC. So that's where I'm questioning, and I'd like to get more out from Laura to find out,
But
is that correct?
is
But what we
he
did
considered
do-
a commercial now?
No, he's not considered a
He's not
commercial, it's a
considered commercial.
residential home. It's in a residential area. For him to be considered commercial, or for anybody, let's get back to any AFC, if it is in a residential area, it is considered a residential home. A residential, for 6 or less. And a residential home, per that Michigan Enabling Act, is allowed to be used commercially as a AFC, but it still has a residential zoning. So that's where we're still going about. So Riley's office sent a letter to the Attorney General asking for an interpretation of this law, saying, this is the way we're reading it, this is the way they're reading it, we want your interpretation.
And we've not, I understand there's been no response.
It's
There's
an
been no
election year.
response, and they don't have to respond. So my goal is to ask again once there's a new AG if we don't get a response. I know that's late, but we can't force the AG to answer us. But I do want a response sooner or later, but I'd like to contact Laura, and I was gonna talk to Kathy today about it. I sent her an email. She sent me an email today saying she'd only be until 2, and I cannot get it back to her during that time with my obligations I had today. But I wanna talk to her about that investigation report. I wanna make a call to Laura. I wanna talk about that tonight. I want to find out, because per that report, to me, the way the report read is there's no violation now because the parolees aren't there. But I was reading it at, well, then if the parolees were there, there was a violation, but now they fixed the violation by removing the parolees. So to me, they're saying the parolees aren't supposed to be in a group home that's a residential. But the Department of Corrections, in that day we met in Lansing, they made it sound like we were interpreting that wrong. So I think that's why they were removed.
Maybe you could tell me, because I haven't been able to nail this down, and you went to the meeting. The people who were there, were they on parole or were they released?
They were on parole.
They were on parole, so they were still
They were
correctional
tethered.
clients.
They were still correctional, they were gonna be,
They were tethered.
they were tethered,
Yeah.
they were being watched, they were having a parole officer check on them. They were still in the care of the correctional.
Because to me, that makes all the difference in the world. If they're free, they've done their time, then they have the right to be wherever they want. If they're still a client of the correctional
They are,
department.
the Department of Corrections had them placed there through a third party who placed them into this person's AFC.
Okay, so they're not cleared yet of their charges because they're still on parole, and there's still limitations on what they can do.
But keep in mind that the only reason that they were allowed, because again, this is crazy Michigan stuff. I don't hold us accountable for that. But because these guys were a sexual type offender, they got reclassified as being mentally,
Yeah, right.
mentally, whatever the proper PC word is for that.
Mentally
And so they ignored the fact of the sexual predator part of it and reclassified them as the.
And that's where Department of Corrections and Laura says it's okay for
They're
them
still
to
on
be
parole,
there.
so it doesn't matter.
But the investigation report, Laura, is not saying it's okay for them.
We're just trying to pass information on.
I'm not
Sitting in that
saying
meeting,
agree.
if Jake, I'm surprised Jake didn't tell you this part, you wouldn't have wanted to hear
We
how they
haven't talked to Jake
rationalize.
basically since then, he moved.
I know, but he was back in the house for a couple months after the,
That'd be
or at least a month
possible.
over. But how they rationalize it, quote, they didn't feel that these sexual offenders were really bad sexual offenders. They had excuses, and I'm telling you, it was very frustrating listening to that. And I'm not as frustrated as you homeowners, but it was very frustrating to hear that statement.
I think they were shocked, though. I do think they were, I think Laura was more surprised on the way they were behaving when,
See, the day is a gray area because we didn't really meet the day here because.
No, the way the employees were behaving, when we were talking about.
Oh, that's a separate issue.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
we were just talking about the guy.
Oh, gotcha.
Maybe, Dan, let's just take a step back. Here's what happens. Somebody gets released by the Department of Corrections. They say, okay, you don't have to stay in prison anymore. Then it goes to a contracting company who says where they're gonna figure out where to put these guys.
Yep.
They can't go free yet, but we still gotta keep an eye on them. So the state of Michigan, and they kind of offloaded to this contracting company,
Yes.
and then that contracting company was the ones that moved them into
The
the
contracting
home in your-
company
for a temporary purpose.
said, this is the home where they're going to, this is where they're located at, make sure the home has all the correct things that they need, gets it all set up. And yes, so that's what this third party did, which I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, and that doesn't matter, but the third party did that. And then they decided on this AFC, this home. I think the only thing Department of Corrections says is we need so many to go to Oakland County, so many to go to Wayne County, so many to go to Johnson County.
Based on where they were convicted. based
No,
on
it's
the-
not where they come
It's
from though.
percentage.
It's the
Right.
percentage, so if 20% that year from, 20% goes to Jackson State from Oakland County that year, 20% needs to come back. It's not the same people, right? It's not the same people, because these, when you read the people where they were from, they weren't even
Right.
from Oakland County at all. Because they're still in care, so they're not going back to where they're from, they just have to be out, because.
But it was frustrating to me to hear that explanation, because it seemed like there was always just somebody pointing the finger at somebody else. And this contracting company wasn't at the Lansing meeting. It was only Lara in the Department of Corrections.
But, yeah, and that's where I was trying to find out if they understood the residential area they were going to instead of a commercial area. And that was the main issue. But they said that we're reading the law wrong. So that's where the Attorney General letter, I was hoping would get an answer.
You know, just thinking out loud, I was wondering, on your cul-de-sac, when it snows, who plows the roads?
We do, we pay as residents, we have to pay to plow that road. It's
So
not
have you
county
formed a
road.
homeowners association?
We don't have a homeowners association, but
considered
we
it?
have anybody that purchases a home on that street, there's a Sleepy Hollow Road Maintenance Agreement that they sign
But
stating
it's not a
that.
special assessment from the township, it's just something you guys are doing
No,
locally.
No, they don't.
Now,
have
that
to-
they're
Again, not being
responsible.
an attorney, I know that some of you have retained an attorney, it's just something to talk about, to say, what can you do, maybe.
We've
it's
talked about
forming
that,
a,
and the
you know,
problem is for us now to form a homeowners association,
You can't exclude.
all five of us have to agree to that.
Well.
This
you-
AFC homeowner's not gonna agree
I'm
to
saying,
that
you
now.
know, you can't retroactively include the house that's already there, but I'm saying, could you, the remaining
Prevent
houses
the
that
other.
are not, put them into a homeowners association? I'm just asking you to talk to your attorney,
We did, we
okay.
talked to our attorney, and in order for us to do it, everybody on the street has to be in agreement.
okay.
And the
Unless it
owner of
would've
that
been-
home.
Unless it
would
would have been formed before all the houses
Before.
were built, because then you come in.
So
and
there are other private roads like ours that are doing that, putting it in the
Right.
works, but we can't. There's no way he'll agree.
But the remaining homes can't form their own homeowners association without that guy?
No, because he owns on it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only way you could force someone, so if there was two houses on it and they formed it and there was empty lots, you can form it with those two houses, and when the empty lots come in, they have to be part of it because they're an empty lot, like a deal. So, yeah, I mean, we didn't walk away with Lansing much help. I'm really counting on the AG letter.
I'm Lisa Pagano Lawrence.
I'm sorry, what's your last name again?
Pagano Lawrence. So many things. I guess the first question I have is, all of these things, the state of Michigan is insulating themselves with a third party, so that they are not at fault in any of this.
It appears that way. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know. It appeared that way.
So if this kind of stuff keeps happening in Brandon, which if you look at the comparison from Brandon to all the other nearby townships and municipalities, we are significantly more dense with these homes. I assume because we have dropped the ball. There are no ordinances, there's nothing to stop this.
Was
Those
that exactly
ordinances.
true though? It wasn't Holly, but they have a higher density of group homes than we do?
Yes, Holly was the only other one,
Okay.
yes. I believe because they don't have an ordinance either. I believe that these ordinances, whether you say that they're enforceable or not, I believe they're a deterrent. And if you look at the numbers, it looks like they're a deterrent. Now, the fact that we have nothing in place, if this continues, it destroys our property values, it makes good people leave. Why can't Brandon Township go after the state of Michigan for destroying property values, for doing this kind of stuff? The density, it's ridiculous. And for them to say, oh, well, they're mentally ill, so the sex offender thing doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter that they assaulted a child. They're mentally ill, so it's okay. And it's okay to put them next to a bunch of other children. That is not okay for the state of Michigan to do that. And why can't the township do something to remedy that?
Well,
That's
and
my
I-
first question.
There's
And I
4
have a
houses for sale around us now, within a quarter of a mile.
I've been
within
watching,
the
I've been
last week
watching
and a half.
Zillow, I've been watching Zillow.
No, the township's
I
had on
asked-
its tail for 30 years, so.
Huh?
The township's had on its tail for 30 years, so now they're getting caught with their shorts now.
Well, I haven't been on the board for 30 years,
I know,
so,
I'm just
mean,
saying.
Again,
I said the
let's
township's
try
not
to
you.
fix the future and
It's
not.
an easy target, because there's no laws in place.
I tried to question the Department of Corrections of, did you look where they're putting us? Did you look at the AFC? I mean, I really questioned them a lot, I feel like. I really made them think about, I mean, I kept saying, did you look at this? Because Jake brought a picture of the home. I said, look at this. Did you look at this? Are you following up with where these homes are that your third party is picking? Are you looking at the area? I mean, I kept pushing it, especially when he told me there was errors. And then with the whole Laura thing of them saying it was okay, I was like, well, we'll wait for the complaints. So have any of you guys gotten your investigation reports on your complaints yet? Have any of
No,
you guys gotten
Nothing.
Nothing.
And I
Okay.
did mine on May 18th. Nothing. No response at all.
Kathy's was dated,
I think hers was May 11th.
okay, well,
They received mine by certified mail and signed for it May 23rd. and I
okay, so
thought
hers
it
was May 11th and she just got hers last week, or the week before. So your guys' should be coming. So if you guys want to share yours with me and let me know what they,
When
I'd
you're
like to
filling
see
those
them.
out, do they say within 60 days they're gonna get
I
back
think
with
it's
you?
like
Is
45.
45.
45 days,
So
and that's
they're
their
late now.
discussion.
So it's late at this point.
So the
Well-
state of Michigan's dropping the ball again.
It's, well, they're late with everything, so I mean, it's not just.
That's not an excuse.
I know it's
though.
not, I'm just
I mean,
telling you,
That's not acceptable.
I know it's not, I know it's not. I mean, I deal with Laura, I'm a CPA, so I deal with state being late, IRS being, I mean, we have to file timely, but that's a whole nother story. I was just saying, I mean, I truly questioned them and I felt like they were listening to me, the Department of Corrections, on what they're doing. Because I really feel like if you read the law, that's why they removed them, because the law says it and we caught it.
I
And
thought it was pretty clear that they were removed because the
They were
sex
threatened.
offenders were threatened.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what we were
Not
told.
for any other
Who
reason.
told you that? Because I didn't hear that.
Well, it's written, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were threatened. Nobody cares about us and the threats made against us. Us who pay taxes and, pay our mortgage.
Because Brendan Letter report just said that.
So-
I was rather amazed at that.
And as far as I'm concerned, I understand Kathy made that complaint and Kathy got the result. I think she should make another complaint and say, they are saying there was no violation. There was a clear violation. And just because this particular homeowner got caught and those people were removed, they weren't removed because he wanted to do the right thing. They were removed because the state of Michigan removed them. And
That's why I want to follow up on her complaint, on their investigation of her complaint, because I feel like they are only saying that it wasn't in violation because they weren't there anymore.
Right.
Her complaint was invalid because they're not in violation anymore, but they were at one point
right,
in
and I
violation.
think it should be appealed to say,
Right.
they were in violation.
Yeah, it just happened to be, once you guys did your investigation, they weren't anymore.
Right, and the reality is, this guy is breaking the rules, and if he keeps getting away with it, he's gonna keep doing it. And we are all gonna pay for it.
I'm sorry?
When
Yeah.
someone in the neighborhood has to make a phone call to the police department, does someone in the neighborhood then follow up with making yet another Laura complaint every time that happens?
I don't believe
Um,
so, because the police are not,
No.
they're coming out, they're investigating, they're
Doesn't
looking, they're
matter.
saying, okay, well, what's going on, but there's no report,
I'm
there's
just saying,
nothing.
in my opinion,
Well-
it was a valid reason that you called the police, so it's probably the valid reason that you file a complaint. in my
Let me
opinion.
tell you, because I'm a former cop, right?
Mhm.
So just because they don't do a report, doesn't mean something's not written down about it. So we have what's called a D card, which is the dispatch number, and that's the complaint number for the call. So if they come out asking for what the complaint number is, excuse me, and then even if there's not an official report made, the officer will call into the dispatcher and say, this is the situation, and they'll make those notes on the dispatch card. So there's still documentation if something happened. It may not be a regular report form, but there'll be something that shows that they were there and this was the nature of the complaint.
They were there, we seen the police pull up, knock on the door, and they weren't there for very long, I'll say that. So they probably just said, oh, we heard there was a disturbance, everything okay, and they probably went, yeah. But some of the people involved in that disturbance got in a van and sped down the road and almost hit the neighbors coming up the road in that with their vehicle. So,
Yeah, but just so you know, always get a complaint number when they come out. And even if you have to ask the dispatcher after the fact, you know, the police were just out at the house handling a call, do you have the dispatch number for that or complaint number for that? Always get the number, that way they can track it down. And there'll be some documentation that they were there and you'll have access to it.
So the reason why I'm not sure if I believe why they were removed is because it says that this was from their exit conference with the owner of the residence, and the owner of the residence is saying why they were removed. That might not be the true reason why they were removed.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Seriously,
do you
the true
remember
reason
how
they
we
were
found
removed
that out?
is because
They were removed because of the
Channel
threats?
2 News was here
Quite
making a
possibly.
ruckus. That's why they were
Well,
removed.
but it possibly could be because Law and Department of Corrections realized, it could be because they weren't supposed to be there too.
No, I believe that they were not supposed to be there.
So what I'm saying is that the Lara did not say they were removed because of the threatening. That was not Lara's part, that was what was in their exit interview when they interviewed
Okay.
the person. But they never came back and interviewed us when Kathy filed the complaint. They talked with the person the company the complaint was against. But from what I understand, Laura never called Kathy to discuss her complaint with her more.
Well,
So I'd like
not
to discuss
according
that.
to their form.
Right.
Where they said, this is what we did. We talked to the supervisor, we talked to the person
They
who
didn't talk
owned
to the
it.
supervisor.
Yeah, I think that was the first one they talked to.
No.
It was a female.
The
Well, yeah, but not
supervisor
ours,
meeting
the
Kathy.
super,
No, 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 the
Right,
supervisor.
supervisor.
they
Yeah.
talked to the owners of the AFC, they didn't talk any to us.
Right, right.
And that's where I still have now a question
Yeah,
about their
exactly.
investigation. So
No,
that's
when I
where,
said supervisor, I meant supervisor of the
Right.
house.
so that's where I'm not
Very
sure
odd.
why they were,
Okay.
I'm not sure why they were truly removed.
And you have,
Should that be a story,
whoever
that they were
files
being
that
correct?
complaint, they have the option of actually requesting a hearing on that if it was denied, right?
It says, if there are errors in this report, or if you have any additional information, documentation regards this complaint, please submit it in writing. But I also read for the email that if we had questions, so
But I think you can appeal it
Yeah.
also.
Yes, we talked
Which
to
is
our
different.
attorney, did you
Right.
remember the process? If, once
I
it was
have it here.
denied, then there's another step that's taken and we appeal. There's two different
It
levels
actually
after
goes to a
that.
hearing at that point, where you get to
Exactly.
talk to somebody in
Which we
person
need to
versus
do.
just doing it via email.
Which is, I think, in this case, something we should,
I'd like to
the
talk to
township
somebody.
should do.
It's like, at least consider it.
I'd like to consider that, and I'd like to talk to Kathy about it.
Because if
That's
we get him
another
on a
issue with Lara.
violation on this, then.
I think it's a process.
If Lara never responds to the complaint, there's nothing for us to review, right?
Right, and then it says, in the event that I'm not available and you must be, please contact me with any questions, so we can contact the licensing consultant. So I think that, and see if we can do that.
Okay, and then
Sorry,
my
go ahead with
other
yours.
question, and Tracy, you sent this out with the temporary license provision?
That one I don't remember seeing before. She said that to all of us.
We didn't get
this time? This, is it in 101?
It's that spreadsheet that's
Oh.
Is this sort of a, just a draft
It's a summary,
information?
it's a summary.
That's okay.
So Tracy, did this come from Lara?
Yeah, it comes out of that.
No, this. The one that you just sent?
Yeah, it comes out of that 281 or 218.
Okay, so out of Act
Um,
281,
But it's got a number.
section, I think it's 716, unless the city, village, or township approves a temporary license, a temporary license shall not be granted under this act if the issuance of the license would substantially contribute to an excessive concentration of community residential facilities within a city, village, or township of this state.
Where's that out of?
It's 400.716.
Yeah,
And
I
I
read
think that
that.
was, and I think that was one that was also from that Supreme Court ruling. I'll have to go back to my emails, but when I met with Laura and the Department of Corrections in Riley's office is the one who had told me I need to look at that Supreme Court ruling. Because that all then became part of the I think it was
Fair housing standards.
Fair housing standards, and some of the rules in the Michigan, you can't go off anymore because there was a lawsuit.
So can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, and I think that was one of them. I will go back and find my email that I got from Riley's office. I'm sorry, I don't have it here. I don't
No,
have access to my
I read
email
what you
here.
were referring to, the excessive. And I hate lawmakers because they put things like that in. So then it's better interpretation.
Right.
What's excessive, what's not excessive. You know, give me a number. And it's a finite number that we can go by. Or a density as far as a percentage of the homes in the area. Don't say excessive because.
Right, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. It means nothing.
Right.
And everybody can argue your own point, well, that's not excessive, because look at Ishpeming, you know, so, that's one of my frustrations.
Well, and I mean, if you compare it to any other, besides Holly,
Right.
any of those others, I think that it could be determined as excessive. And clearly, it's not gonna stop until someone makes it stop. And then I had another,
Well, is it, this is clear, we have started the process. We have to ask a question about that process though, because this 1,500-foot rule kind of meshes in with what Rochester Hills has done and what Lake Orion has done. We need to take a closer look at the size of the facility that we're trying to control here.
Right.
And then a second thing that we're gonna pass on to at least the planning commission to consider is, do we wanna get to the point where we require the holder of the license to actually be a resident of the property? And that's something that hasn't been discussed yet, but I think it should be.
And I don't want to speak out of turn, I've heard disturbing rumors as to the likelihood of more stringent requirements passing.
what does that mean?
Yeah,
I've heard rumors to the effect that if it is substantially more restrictive than the state law, we're gonna have a difficult time getting it through the planning commission. That's what I heard. I heard it from a very reliable
You
source.
heard it from the same source who decided not to do his job in the first place and
Yeah,
follow the
easy.
Yeah,
rules
yeah,
that were
take it
already
easy.
in place.
I'm just telling you, so I have a real concern.
I'm very concerned about that too.
So can I have my notes back?
Oh, I'm
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I took all these notes.
Well, and you know what? They got buried in my other papers.
That's
I wasn't
all right.
even using them anymore.
So
I'm
one
sorry.
of the things, and I'm just throwing this out there for people to think about while we're discussing everything, is I think there's a need to do something now. And God knows I hate committees. I hate committees because everybody's always butting heads in committees. But it really might be something that would be useful for a group to get together to come up with more specific regulations, such as homeowner or the business owner need to live in the home as an additional restriction. So my question would be, do we look at saying, yes, we're going to approve this as written, the amendment, just to get something out there, but then following up later with another group?
Well,
all of you included,
Keep in mind,
obviously.
this was given to us as a courtesy at this point, that
Well, no, I get it,
it
yeah.
has to go through the planning commission.
Right, no, I understand. But, I mean, it's something for us to think about. I think more stringent requirements should be imposed.
But this isn't gonna do any good.
But we can change what the planning commission sends to us.
I agree with you, Tracy, but like I said, we just got this yesterday. I just saw it for the
They
first
don't
time.
get
This
it
isn't
right.
from the planning
Pass
commission.
this,
Right, but when the
Pardon me?
planning, if the
We
planning
don't wanna
commission
pass.
approves.
No, I
This
don't
goes-
wanna stop anything
It
at
goes
this
to the
point,
planning
because at least
commission
it's
first, and
something,
then it
it's a
comes to
start,
us. If
right?
we don't agree
But
with it,
then-
You wanna pass
When
it?
you don't.
But that's
There's
what I'm
nothing wrong with having that ordinance,
But
I'm saying we
doesn't
need to
this
add to
conflict
that
with
ordinance.
We have
everything?
more than one conversation.
Yeah, sorry,
here.
yeah.
So,
When this says adult foster care, small group home, licensed for 7 or more adults, isn't that conflicting? Isn't a small group home defined as 6 or less?
The
Well, we look at
the
our
way I,
ordinance.
as a trustee, not an attorney, read it, yes, I think there's a conflict, it's confusing to me, yes.
Well, on your bar chart, or on your, it does say small, medium, and large.
Right, because that's how Lara defines it.
Yeah.
Lara defines things differently than the state.
Oh, really? That's great.
Some of the things we've read
Isn't Lara part of
say,
the state?
I would say yes.
Aren't they,
some of them
aren't
though
they out of
say
Lansing?
6 or less, some of them say 12 or less. They don't,
Oh, really?
yeah, we're going like this.
Holy cow.
and that's kind of what this
It
amendment is
depends on
open
for
air
as
as
Depends
well.
on what they're talking about,
And,
yeah.
and I question whether that's done by design to insulate the state.
Yeah,
This,
yeah,
putting people into these facilities saves them a ton of money.
yeah.
And is this done by design just to insulate them? So,
I think you already know the answer to that.
but that's, it needs to be
It's sad.
fixed.
Yeah.
And Brandon Township shouldn't write something that is further confusing. So, maybe we need to decide.
Well,
It could
and
be-
actually,
could be
it
an
was,
oversight.
it was
Something
mentioned,
that's-
it was mentioned in Lansing, they did end up starting to talk about that there needs to be something done to their, ordinances. Remember, we started talking about that at the
Yeah,
end?
but that's a different, you're talking about the fact that, just to give a quick history that I'm sure you guys know more about this than I do. You know, in the 70s, we used to have mental facilities, there were hospitals here, up in the
Right.
shut those down, so we went to this new model, what we're doing right now. Now, the DOC, the Department of Corrections, recognizes that there needs to probably be 2 different levels of foster care that they're referring to, and right now, that's not out there. But they, even the Department of Corrections realizes that releasing some of these guys to a normal adult foster care is not right, but right now, there's no other alternative.
Right, because that's what I started talking about, then you're putting them in with private pays and do the private pays grow, and that's when they did say to me, they weren't gonna place more than 3 there. The homeowner might have said they were gonna have 6, but the Department of Corrections said they only planned on 3.
No, the
because-
homeowner said 6
People.
special needs adults. 6
Right.
mentally
Right.
challenged.
Well, in the
Six.
Department of Corrections,
Yeah.
so that, what we said, once we knew that it was a home of 6, I asked the Department of Corrections, and he said, no, we were only going to put 3 there. So I said, the other 3 were gonna be mixed private pay, and he said, whatever the owner wanted.
So
to
their
put in the
intention
home.
was to put 3 there in this residential home.
Their intention was to put 3. I said, but they're, you know, and then I questioned about how their sheet said they're not supposed to be around other convicts. You're around other convicts. How are they going off of their parole sheets of what they're supposed to do if this is what you guys are allowing them to do? So I questioned that, and they said, well, you know, these guys have special situations because they're disabled.
Now, I do have a question about that. They're telling you they have a special, I don't know, designation or something because they're mentally challenged or
Right.
some other mental issue, that they're ignoring the sexual predator issue. However, it says in that ordinance, whatever it is, that it doesn't say whether they're mentally challenged or not. It says, and it doesn't say whether they're parolees or not. It says those released from correctional institutions.
Right.
Whether they're still on parole, whether they're free, whatever, they're not supposed to be placed there.
Irrelevant.
And they said that where the zoning one is just talking about zoning, and they said the other one, they don't qualify for basically because they are disabled, so they're falling under that. And it was, like I said, I did not believe them. I believe they're interpreting it wrong still. That's where I was waiting for the Attorney General. That's where I'm gonna question the investigation report. as I said, they said they were only going to do 3, and I still questioned, I said, but 3. I said.
3's a gang.
I said, that's too many still together
Right.
in this area.
Right.
Does the Brandon Township attorney know this information? So like,
Yes, but this
Yes.
is also an issue that's been fixed. I think we should discuss it, but that's not, we're trying to control the number, the density of group homes within a certain
I
area.
agree to a point,
Right.
because it's been fixed because, as far as we know, there are no criminals
There are not.
residing
Well,
in
no,
that
no,
house.
no,
We know
there-
there are criminals working there. There are no criminals residing in that house. We know that.
There are not, I mean, there are not.
Okay.
Department of Corrections told us they're not, and Glover is
However-
finding out where they're released to, if there are any, and there has not
Talking
been.
about the Lara complaint, there needs to be a violation established. He did have a violation. He put criminals in there. And for us to just blow it off,
I'm
he'll
not
do it
bringing
again and
up-
again.
I want to talk, well, he's not going to there.
And also, just so you know, Lara's attitude on that, because I was being kind of a smart aleck with some of the questions I asked, because their answers were so
Right.
stunning, that I said, so basically, based on the theory that you've just presented here, as long as he fires everybody that you complain about, the next day, he could just have a new guy in there every
Right.
day, and
Exactly.
he'd still
A
be
new
following
criminal.
along, and
Right.
it's very frustrating,
Right.
but they said, yeah.
And that's basically what this is. He fixed it, so there's no violation,
Yep.
because he fixed it. And I understood, so I understood where they were coming to a point. Okay, being that I hold a license, and I did tell them I do understand to a point. So what I do understand is that, so as holding a license myself with Lara for my CPA license, if I make a mistake, I file someone's tax return wrong, I make a mistake, do I need to lose my license forever because I made one mistake in my 20 years of being a CPA? Do you think I should lose my license for that? I have a chance to fix it. I made a mistake, I maybe forgot to put down your
But
mortgage
it should be
interest.
acknowledged that you made that mistake.
And I'm not saying I can't acknowledge that I made a mistake, but
But
should they take my license away from me
if you
forever?
make that mistake 10 or 15 or
Well,
20
correct.
times,
Correct.
there should be an acknowledgement every time, and somebody eventually should look and go, okay, look, this guy's clients were having sex in front of employees, they were doing all these
Correct,
things,
correct.
there were
I'm not
drug
saying,
issues.
I'm not saying that this guy
So-
should be off, but I'm saying per this, you have to, I understand they don't want a lawsuit against them if they take away someone's license, because if they took my license away because I made one mistake on a tax return,
Right.
you know I would not be too happy. I mean, hopefully I don't make a mistake ever on someone's tax return, but if I did and they tried to take away my license, I wouldn't be happy. So I understood that point. They need to make sure that they're following
And I
the rules
understand that
too.
point, but my point is, there needs to be violations established when they happen, whether they're corrected or not.
I
There should be a
understand
So
that,
that you
that's why I
can
wanna-
establish a pattern
And that's why I want to contact
of
them.
inappropriate and irresponsible behavior.
And that's why, and all the different facilities should be into
Right.
one and not one, but it's the way it's set up too. I'm just saying, I understood their point, when they made a point of, we can't take away someone's license for, you know, one mistake, they don't want a lawsuit either, so they need to make sure they're following the rules or taking
think they
away
need a
someone's
lawsuit.
license.
You made a statement, again, I'm just asking a general question, when you made a statement as if you knew that there were other criminals working in that facility, how do you know that?
Because one of them told Jake that he would kill him and
Okay.
Yes, we know the
do
rest.
other inappropriate
Okay.
things.
Well, that one, there's been a police report filed, yes.
Yes.
That guy was a criminal.
Okay.
There were people with
And
drug
we were-
offenses.
That was a specific offense that we discussed in Lansing. And that's where I came up with my frustrated comment of, well, so, and I'll just say, any person that owns a facility, this could happen over and over again, as long as they correct the known
Right.
problem.
Right.
There's
When
no.
is it
enough?
and-
That's gonna
and that-
be-
And they shook their head and said, yeah.
Well, then
And
it's
so
done.
as much as I'd like to be able to
Right.
overrule the state of Michigan from here, my Brandon Township trustee
You
seat,
should.
I can't.
So the
I'd
question
like to be
is
able
when
to.
does Laura say it's enough?
Right.
And then I.
And,
they
and my
keep
point is,
count.
if you never establish that there were violations made when we know that there were, if you never
There's no
do
record.
that, then there will never be.
There'll never be,
adult
and that's why we
regulars.
want to follow up with their
And that's what we
investigation.
want to follow up with. I just had this given to me, was it yesterday or today?
I think it was
The
yesterday.
investigation report. I just had it
Right.
given to me because I was gone on vacation the week of the 16th. And
We just got it, I think yesterday or today?
Just yesterday.
so I just, so I think it came that week I was gone, and then I got back, I read the email, and I'm like, oh, I got questions for Kathy. So on Monday last week, I questioned Kathy as soon as I got back. She wasn't in, and, I said, well, when you are, I'd like to discuss it, and then that's when I finally got to report, was yesterday. So, I mean, things have been called up a little bit, but I can't tell that, so.
Tracy, I'd like to
That's why we
answer
got
your
this
question.
meeting.
You had asked about.
Yeah, I don't think you should pass this just to get something in the writing. just to
Well,
get-
okay, so that's an important point, because like I said, I'm of the opinion, do we get something in place and then go back and try to establish stricter rules following it?
This isn't doing
How
that.
difficult is it to influence it now? What has to be done to influence it and change it now before it
Well,
goes?
yeah, can it be
What-
changed before it goes to the planning commission?
It
Like-
can, but you're gonna draw out that period even longer then.
No, so there's a
We
meeting on
talked
August
about
28th.
some expediency here in order to try to get something in the works.
But we're talking about a meeting on August 28th, right? So
Yeah.
we've got 4 weeks from today. Can this be amended between now and then? When does it have to be?
15 days.
15 days, but
So from the
Okay,
28th,
so
it has to
15
be,
days prior.
it has to be in the paper before, okay, so let's go to
Wait,
the
15
calendar.
days prior to?
To the meeting.
to the meeting.
So,
planning
1,
commission's gotta
2,
be
3,
posted.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It has to be in the paper by the 11th. So by next Wednesday, so within a week, it has to be out to the paper.
Okay, so how hard is it to change that one statement?
We need to
But
find
I'm
out
not
why
talking
it's
about,
in there.
I'm not talking about just one statement, I mean.
Well, no, the
we're
one
talking
statement about the more than 7, less than 12.
Oh, that would probably be easy, but I'm talking about
They don't-
stricter requirements.
No, but I think that's Tracy's point, is if we pass it with it saying 7 or more adults, but not more than 12 adults, that doesn't help anything.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
That's-
Oh, no, I thought,
Like,
okay,
it's
all
legal.
right, I
Okay,
misunderstood.
So can that statement change to be more
We need to find
accurately?
out why it was written that way. That might have been purposely written that way.
Okay.
We don't know.
But-
I agree with what you're saying, but I don't know why it was written that way until I find out. I can't answer your question.
Okay,
But
so,
can't we make once, okay, so it goes to the planning commission, they say, bring it to the board.
They approve it, make a recommendation.
They can
that
also
the-
make changes
They
themselves.
can make
They can also
changes.
make changes themselves.
Right, so
at
even
that
though it
time.
went to the newspaper one way, because we posted it, we said there's a public hearing, they can make changes themselves. Then it comes.
At
up-
their meeting.
At their meeting,
But not between.
but not between, right, so it has to go, so as soon as it hits the
with
paper.
discussion at their meeting.
Discussion at their meeting, so after they listen to you guys, they can say, yes, let's change this wording, or, yeah, let's even add this and come up with something on their own.
Are
Or
they
not.
gonna say, we need to talk to an attorney first?
They might very well.
Well, but
No,
hopefully Bill will
because,
be there.
no, because what they will do is they will make their recommendations that it be presented to
Us.
the township board for approval. At that point in time, it would then be
As
reviewed.
written.
Be reviewed again.
It would be
to come to us.
reviewed by the township attorney before
So maybe
before
we
you
can
guys
add-
would,
right.
you know, approve it, it would be.
So if the
Before
township attorney
final
says, no,
approval.
you have to change this thing, does it have to go back to planning commission then?
Not
No,
necessarily.
No, because they already said it could come to us. And then even with us, when we changed, at the first reading, we could make a change from what the planning commission sent us.
So the planning
It doesn't
commission is
have to be right there.
approving the spirit of the
No,
change?
not,
Because it can be changed after, and it
It
doesn't have to
can
go
be.
back to them.
there's a limit to the nature of the change.
Okay.
The changes that are made cannot change the intent of the ordinance.
Okay.
Which I understand is kind of a loose interpretation, but, you know, you can't go in and say, we're gonna make this ordinance banning dogs in the village of Whartonville, and, oh, wait, no, just kidding, we're gonna ban cats. I mean, you can't change the nature of the
Right.
ordinance. You can change fewer than 12 to fewer than 7. I mean, those
Or
minute
we could
changes
change
can happen,
1,500,
but
or we
you-
could change 1,500 feet to 2,000 probably.
right,
something
and,
like
but
that.
you cannot change the nature of the ordinance.
But if you changed it from 6 or less to 7 to 12, you are completely changing it, because it's
It
two
is.
different kinds of homes according to their.
And according to
there's
the state
also-
statute also.
But in this case, it's odd because there's also wording in the statement that calls it a small group home, so
Right.
there might be some wiggle room there as far as being able to modify.
That
the
type of
existing.
change should occur before it is reviewed by the planning commission.
Yeah, that should be taken care of.
And from what I'm understanding,
We're gonna ask
the
tomorrow.
trustees
Yeah,
intend to take care of that before it gets to the planning commission.
at least ask, I don't know if we're gonna be able to change it, but at least ask.
Or before it gets to the paper, right?
Right, so
Oh, yeah.
before next
Is
week.
it the same thing, because they'll get it.
Right, I don't know if they, I don't know if they put it to go out in the paper today. You know, if you guys got something for this week, Saturday or not.
They wouldn't put it out,
No.
they wouldn't put it out until.
I
the
don't, I
15
usually
days
don't
before.
know what goes in our.
So when we got it, the next planning commission meeting was the 28th. So for 15 days out, it has to be in by the 8th. So it could have been in by this week and we could have had the planning commission meeting on the 21st, but with,
Mm-mm.
with the meetings
Can't.
already scheduled for the 28th, so they can't.
They only meet on the second and fourth Tuesdays. Tuesday, right?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, so you got, and then we're meeting on the 4th.
One meets Monday, one meets Tuesday, one meets Wednesday, so.
And then we're meeting on
second
the
and
4th, so we're meeting exactly the week after.
Is there enough days to, if something's changed in the planning committee and a meeting on the 4th September, is that enough time for something to be changed?
You can't, you won't
they
review
don't-
it on the fourth.
We will, Kathy said we will,
On the fourth?
yes.
What's September?
They meet
cannot
on the
violate-
28th, the 4th.
Why do you say they can't?
Yeah, why do you say we can't change?
You
it?
have, well, and I could be mistaken, I'm not 100%,
We can have first
knowledgeable
reading.
on the open, no, you have, there's certain deadlines that you have to have posted by certain days before the meeting. Like, it has to be posted in the paper 15 days before a public hearing.
That's the
So-
public hearing.
Yes, but the township board has the same type of requirements that they have to meet. You have to have your packet and everything, your agenda and everything has to be ready to go so much time before your
Kathy knows
meeting.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, and Kathy knows that, and so
So
therefore,
if
and
theirs is
Kathy,
the 28th and ours is the 4th, that's a week later, that's enough time still. We don't have to have the public hearing for the first reading because the planning, I don't know, Kathy told me it could all happen within that time period.
and maybe it can, but there's certain, I'm just saying that there's certain requirements that have to be met for posting. You have to have Open Meetings Act, has to be posted so much time before the meeting, different things like that. So I am personally not sure if that's enough time, but Kathy would certainly know better than
I'm
I.
pretty sure that's what she said.
And when
it
you're
could
saying
be.
first reading, second reading, do you mean, let's say, for example, the first reading in September, the second reading would be in October?
No.
No, we can make a special meeting with enough, as long
We
as we
will make
made
a
enough
special
time, we
meeting.
will make a special meeting in September for the second reading.
Kathy's already made.
There's
it
some
clear we'll do
ordinances that we will do first reading in September and the next one at our October meeting. But we are trying to push this through, so we will have a special meeting for that. We
Maybe a
poss-
week apart?
I don't know if it can be a week or if it has to be 2 weeks, but there is time that it has to be between the first and the second reading.
Because if another group home was up in our neighborhood, then our neighborhood's lost. And then the battle then is for Brandon, but then our neighborhood's lost. And we won't be here then for that round, when you guys are battling for Brandon.
That's part of the reason we're here tonight.
Well, we're trying, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I know,
what
and I
else I
just-
can do besides follow the
I know.
rules. I have to
just
follow the
question.
rules. You don't want me to
Yeah.
not follow the rules, because then it doesn't work.
No, okay, so can we say that our intention is before August 8th to take this to the attorney to see why it was worded this way, if that was intentional? Can it be changed to 6 or less?
I can speak for only myself, I'm gonna ask that question tomorrow.
Okay.
It's
So-
not- We're not gonna.
And I
we're
don't
not
think we
gonna
need
sit-
to all ask, though, if you say
If
you're
you
gonna
guys
ask.
want me to do it, I will.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
It's a simple question.
That's one of the-
Why
It
is
should
it
be.
mentioned in the wording? And if the answer is it was intentionally listed at more than 7, I'm gonna have, I don't know what else we're gonna do at that point, but let's cross that bridge when we get to it.
I think we need to ask the question then, why?
I
Because-
agree, but let's wait and see what the answer is first before we get reactive to that, so.
And
I
does
agree.
the Brandon ordinance specifically define small group home?
I've been trying to find it in the ordinances right now, we're having a, oh, you have our ordinance? I've been trying to find it, and I can't find it right now.
In the file.
Oh, in the file.
Oh, it's isn't our ordinance, so this is just your questions.
This,
Oh, section 46, page 6 to 16. This is the Brandon Township ordinance, so. Foster care small group home adult means facility with the group capacity to receive 12 or fewer adults for providing supervision, personal care and protection in addition to being on board for 24 hours a day, 5 or more days a week, and 2 or more consecutive weeks for compensation. So ours does say a small group home adult means a facility of group capacity of 12 or fewer.
So I guess the question is, can this new change match that?
Yeah, it should say small group home license for not more than 12 adults.
I would like to say that.
Yeah, that's not what it says right now.
So we're hoping that we'll have an answer to that within the next week, and if there is an answer to that, and that does get changed, then it would go forward by August 8th to the paper for the August 28th meeting, correct?
Don't want to answer. I can only tell you on the.
If we have an answer,
I hope so.
it can go forward by August 8th. This
So
isn't gonna get pushed to the
this
next
doesn't-
month, right?
This doesn't originate on Scott Broughton's desk.
It would be 2 weeks, because the planning commission meets on the second and fourth Tuesday.
Which is the 28th,
Tuesday.
right?
Yeah,
The second and fourth Tuesday of the
Oh,
month.
it's Tuesday.
So if it got pushed back to the next meeting, they would immediately schedule it for 2 weeks later. So
Okay.
the second Tuesday of,
Of September.
thank you, yes.
Okay.
They wouldn't necessarily, if there is something on the agenda that needs attention, they would not push it back to the fourth. They would push it to the second.
Okay. But then the
I
fourth
hope that answers your
meeting
question.
is
The-
this meeting, right?
The planning commission meeting is on the 28th.
But then the fourth is the township
Correct.
meeting, correct?
And
Yes, typically we meet on Mondays, but it's Labor Day, so we're meeting on the Tuesday.
Oh,
That's why we're on Tuesday that week,
Oh,
because we're not
okay.
meeting on Labor Day. Typically, they're the first okay, so in August, we're typically the first Monday, but we're not this coming Monday because of the election day, with the election being the next morning. So we are the following Monday, the 13th. In September, because of Labor Day, we're not gonna meet on Labor Day, we meet on the Tuesday always during September. Okay.
that's the yearly schedule they set in January. So.
We set it in December, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
okay, and then I guess.
That's online, if you go to our front page, you can click on our meeting schedule. But it is, our next meeting is the 13th, and then our following meeting is September 4th because of Labor Day.
And then will we be notified, or do we have to wait for it to come out in the paper?
Notified about what? Sorry.
If there's gonna be a change to this
Their proposal.
I will send something out.
Yeah,
if
since
I
I'm
find
here,
out,
yeah.
but that's always iffy if I find out. Sometimes
Let's put it
the
this way.
information does not flow.
When I have an answer, I will forward it to 3 of these guys, and I don't know if, have you, it seems like Dana's been dealing with those, I'll call you the cul-de-sac folks more than anyone else, is that the case?
I think Bob has been too.
Okay. I made it a point in our last regular meeting just to try to centralize how communications are flowing, so we have kind of a central point of contact. Because if, I'm sometimes talking to the Veganos, and then sometimes I'm talking to the Morleys, things get crossed, things get lost. I just like to have kind of a single point of contact on both ends, one for the board, and really for the board, it should be Kathy, in my opinion.
So is Kathy back to work, is she not?
She's been checking emails.
So if she's not acting as supervisor, who is? Who's acting in that role?
Don't get me started.
It would, the chain of command, and forgive me, the chain of command should be that then the deputy supervisor.
In an ideal world, that's
Which is
exactly how it's
Pam.
supposed to work.
Which is Pam, the deputy supervisor, is supposed to step in.
The
I'm
chain,
sorry.
and that's
Pam's
the
smart.
deputy
I gotta say,
supervisor.
guys, this isn't something I wanna talk about.
No,
Yeah, I really
you're
don't
right.
want to talk about this
Yeah.
either.
It's not for tonight.
Sorry.
So
So-
you'll get an answer
So
from.
should we not include Kathy if we're?
No, you
No,
should.
no, no,
absolutely.
include Kathy, please,
Oh, no,
include Kathy,
yeah.
please
You-
include
okay,
Kathy.
she's
You
reading
can
all
send
our
her
emails.
emails, send her your emails.
Yeah. reading all that
Please
stuff.
include her, I'm not trying to
Setting
keep
on
her,
your-
I'm not trying to go back behind her back, I'm not trying to do anything without her knowing.
No, that's not what I'm getting, I was just getting at, if she is really ill and not able to work, then
No,
should she not?
it's my understanding, just so everyone knows, it's my understanding she presided over a meeting last night here.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Oh, she did.
She
Yeah.
did.
Yes.
Well, why is
So
she
it's
here
not,
tonight?
Good thing it's
there
not
was
the
a
meetings.
Lake Louise homeowners
Why is
meeting
she here
last
tonight
night.
then?
Okay.
Lake Louise district, so,
This is kind of important.
so you know.
Okay.
She has to.
Not a secret, it was a public meeting, so.
I didn't know about the meetings.
Yeah, you
See,
did.
we don't know everything that goes on in the drink room.
And so, you know, those kind of meetings, that's really a subcommittee, I think.
Yeah, it's a subcommittee.
And so that's why we weren't.
It's not
included in
here
that.
tonight, sorry.
No, let's, again,
not-
let's not read into that because I.
No, I was just
Well,
asking
and
a
if you had your
question.
meeting in July, I would not have been at that, and I felt bad, but I had a family reunion planned for a year and a half. So I've kind of been out of the loop for a little bit because I had a 50th anniversary for my parents, I had a family reunion for my husband's family that's been planned for, my July has kind of been shot. So, getting out of school and birthdays, I think that's all I have.
Can I just, I'm just throwing this
Oh,
out.
come on up.
Hey, Lisa, you know what? If you haven't ever received an answer, go ahead and send me or one of us an
Tracy.
email saying.
Oh, Lisa, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking to Caleb.
No, I didn't get an answer and we'll follow up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying my best to keep that's why at first we said it'd be easy if you guys had one person.
And we were trying to do that.
Yes, well, and I thought he was still gonna
Everybody's
be.
pointing their
involved
fingers at
somehow.
you.
No,
Well,
we
it's
were-
not.
we were not.
She's been elected.
All of them.
Worked for me.
And this may be completely irrelevant, but it just is food for thought, because Diane has brought it up a couple times, and I had a work meeting yesterday where it came up, and it just made me think, what about all your non-licensed,
About what I couldn't hear you.
non-licensed group homes, and like your boarding type homes?
Room and boards.
Like all that, I mean, maybe that's not even a Laura thing, but it's just something to think about, because I was listening to a client talk, I was like, oh.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah, I didn't know there was such a thing as a
How would
non-licensed
something like that exist where they were,
They can be non-licensed.
They're all over.
Non-licensed group homes?
they're all over, but are they legally all over or are they just all over?
They're,
It's
they're
like
all
a-
over.
They don't.
They're all
Is it
over.
like a
They're called
foster
room and
facility
boards.
where somebody adopts or take foster kids in there?
They
Well,
take
for
in
adults.
For adults, they
Really?
take in the same clientele. They're not, so the particular home on our street is a specialized home. That pulls in top dollar, $6,000 to $8,000 per resident per month from the state of Michigan.
They're wrong shop.
So when you go into, then there's just licensed, non-specialized homes where the level of care drops,
I understood
you
that.
don't pull in as much money per resident. Then there's the non-licensed, which they call room and boards, where they charge what they want to charge. And usually it's based on the amount of money they're getting from the state in their SSI.
I have to admit, I did not know there was such a thing. I've never heard that
Yeah.
before. I didn't, I thought that everything had to be
There are a
somewhat
lot
regulated, somewhat
of
licensed.
non-licensed.
Um,
It's an easy way for someone to just purchase a home and put these types of residents in there and make money.
unlicensed.
And then the
Unlicensed.
non-licensed ones, they're not licensed, so they can put as many in there as they want and charge what they want and not have to follow LARA regulations and LARA rulings. And there's a lot of people that will go into those types of homes in that to pay that less money. Then
Where
it's more
I
money in
used to
their
work, we
pocket.
used to call those flop houses, yeah, just
Mhm.
stack them in like cordwood.
Yeah, Pontiac is.
But Marine
Not all they
Township
can have it without
requires.
license.
they
But can
require
the township
licensing.
start, after this issue,
Yeah.
after our issue is
That's, I
done,
agree with you, let's get this
maybe
first
the
one
township
fixed
should
first.
look at,
You probably have them and
Regulating
you just don't know.
non-licensed.
Well, how
Yeah,
would
I've
you
never
know?
heard of such a thing.
Yeah,
Well, if someone doesn't file a license, yeah, how would you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
you just,
Probably the
Well,
police
that
are
makes
called to
sense.
these places
Yeah.
often, maybe that would be a good source is, you know.
Yeah.
nothing to do with
Make sure the police says,
The
hey,
police
yes,
is
we've been
looking
called to
at
this
that.
group home, let's go and check,
Do
are
any
they
of you
on
know,
or
is there
not?
in fact one
Yeah.
of these homes in Brandon Township?
I don't know of any.
So it might not be current. let's focus on what we know.
Something to be aware of.
Yeah.
And then I just had a question, so from that June 19th letter that was sent to Mr. Burnett, he makes the comment, Mr. Burnett said he has been in contact with the city by way of his attorney, and it is alleged that he has violated a city zoning ordinance regarding ex-cons and sex offenders residing in the residential area without permission of the city or township. Mr. Barnett stated until his attorney resolves this matter with the city, he will not admit residents who are directly released from prison into the home. So does he have an attorney? Has he come to you guys?
At least the door open, doesn't it?
Where were you reading that at again? Can you read that to me?
On
one more time,
page
please?
3, it's his
Of the,
June 19th, it was addressed to him.
Was that the letter that Kathy
I think that was from Kathy, wasn't it?
So now it's stated,
I remember reading that, I just want
Yeah,
to see it
so-
again. So where, page 3 of what? I'm sorry.
I mean, that's all we've done right there.
Okay, so you're at 521.
Feels like.
Okay, so we're here, okay.
That doesn't get me clear.
and he wouldn't sign the contract, correct? We never heard anything back, but I'm assuming he will not sign that.
Yes. My understanding was that he was not gonna put his name to that.
Yes, Bob. It's in here. But the subsequent pages are the report from Laura. It's in here.
Well, so they have no regulation, okay, so what is, can you repeat your question then? So they say that Lara has no regulation over our city township zoning ordinances.
Right, which it blows my mind because I keep telling you, right, that the state overrides you guys.
You didn't buy
But
that?
this makes me sound like you guys can override them. But my question is, does he have an attorney? Has he approached you guys? I mean, is he still thinking he's gonna get people in there?
The first full paragraph there.
Yeah, I questioned that, I didn't know that his attorney's been in contact with us, so that would be a Kathy question.
Because then if his attorney is in contact with somebody in the city structure, who's he in contact with? If he is in contact with somebody, and it's
That
not,
would
you
be a
guys don't
question
know
to ask
what those
offline,
conversations
Kathy.
are. Yeah.
I think that's a better,
That could
probably a
be-
better, a private question for Kathy.
Because there could be some backroom dealings going on here that we're all unaware of. Could be.
I hope not.
I would hope not, yeah, I'm not going there,
Yeah.
I'm not going there. I guess my question is this a zoning ordinance? Is this part of our zoning, or is this part of our, because it says right here, Lara has no regulation over our zoning ordinance. So can we make a zoning ordinance about people from correctional facilities in residential AFCs? That's a good question. So this is a Kathy bill, so I think what we need to do is, we need to figure out all the questions of who's gonna address Kathy, who's gonna address Bill, who's gonna address.
I agree.
I have
We
not
need
been
to figure
keeping
that
track
out.
of your questions, just their questions.
Well, that's what
No,
I'm saying,
that's
but no,
fine.
I'm saying
It's fine.
here, we need to figure out who's going to do this, so we're not all
The
doing
whole
it.
purpose of this meeting tonight was just to kind of get everybody at least
And
up to
to
date
get-
on the same
and then to
page.
start getting questions answered, but I don't want all of us tomorrow
Right.
contacting Bill, we only need one of
Right.
us too, so we need to figure that out.
I have a question that's, again, because this is a casual meeting. It's my understanding that over the course of time, the neighborhood has hired one, maybe a second attorney. Have attorneys been telling you that the township isn't doing X, Y, and Z that we should be doing? In other words, let us know. I don't know. Is there other things that, we know it's gonna be very difficult to kind of supersede Michigan ordinances, but we're trying. But is there something else that we should be considering that you haven't mentioned, as an attorney mentioned, that we are not doing legally, that we can do?
Well, the last meeting we had with the attorney was, he basically told us to get a little bit more detailed with our Lara complaints,
Okay,
to send lots and lots of them, and to follow up if, once Lara responds,
uh-huh.
if you don't like what you hear, you can appeal, and
Okay.
all this kind of stuff. But quite honestly,
we're all tapped out. We can't afford to keep paying an attorney.
No, I
Did you
agree.
guys- did
Our
you guys
last-
get another attorney, or is it still the same attorney?
No, he suggested that we get the township attorney involved,
Right.
which,
Okay.
which makes sense because he works
Right.
for
Yeah.
us, right?
Right.
And already.
He did state that Kathy's Lara complaint that she just got the response on was very weak, that it didn't have
Okay.
enough guts to it.
If somebody had to make it, again, being generalization, anytime, it's my suggestion, anytime, and this is for the whole township, anytime the police have to be called about a residential group home, you might want to consider filing a Lara complaint.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I mean, we had the police come out the other night. We're gonna write a Lara report about a 2-minute, you know, he was there for 2 minutes at the door.
That's not, but he was only there, but that's not why you
Right.
call the police, though.
Here's the thing, it's disruptive to the community. And that's one of the stipulations that cannot be disruptive to the community.
And,
So if it's disruptive because people are yelling and screaming and carrying on, obviously that's a disruption. So, yeah.
There's no, you know, because I'm home there, I get home earlier than a lot of the folks, you know, that working folks do, because I start early. But the individuals that work there, and I don't know, you can't just tell who might be in the house yelling out and who's yelling in, but they're increasingly getting louder and bolder and more angry. I just hear angry overtones, and sometimes they make out words, sometimes they don't, sometimes it's swearing. But it's getting worse. It seems like with each passing day, they're getting bolder, more comfortable back there. We're not around because we're working class.
Right.
And they're there all day, 3 shifts. And they probably think that, well, the neighborhood's theirs, and that would be the natural thing to think, I guess.
It happened yesterday after, when I got home. Well,
And
there were
Sunday night.
Same profanities.
Well, we
They went on
live
for
on
15
South Lake, we
minutes.
could hear it.
I'm 1,000 feet away. I was sitting on my patio, and it sounded like there was a war going on. It was so loud, so disturbing,
So bad.
so violent in the tone,
Mm-hmm.
that I got out of my seat,
Yeah,
jumped in my truck to head up the street.
And that's
But
when
all
Van
those-
was situated.
all
So
those
is it the
Yeah.
workers, or is it the workers, or is it the
I think
people?
we
It was the workers, definitely.
And the van almost
Definitely.
hit us.
Yeah.
So it was just the workers fighting with each other?
Yes.
And-
But
and
the
not-
van pulls out and
You
almost
think
hits
it's
us.
worker to
in the
worker or
process.
worker against?
Or do you think it's worker to
Couldn't
resident?
tell.
I think
No, no.
you really
Go.
you really couldn't tell at that, at that
Okay.
point who, because
Yeah.
some were in the vehicle and some were out of the vehicle. But some went back into the house, so I think it was a combination of both.
I can tell you another
Okay,
set
but
if you wanna
can't control
know.
residents if residents aren't.
Here's another
I mean, I'll
term.
defeat
It's
the other
not gonna
direction.
bother me, but I gotta tell you, with the level of frustration that you have all just explained that should go into your letter report.
As a
That has
general-
gone
as a
into their
general-
reports, that
But
has not been
But
acknowledged.
you're saying just repeatedly.
Keep
Yeah, as a general-
I'm not saying I'm not saying be frivolous about it, I'm saying be
Right.
honest, and if there's another incident, another report, another incident, another report.
Here's another term to keep
Why
in
is
mind
it-
when you do your reports. Another term to keep in mind, maintaining a disorderly household.
What about, they're driving
It is
these people,
disorderly.
and they're driving erratically, isn't that
Well, that's a matter for the police, really.
Yeah, and that's not gonna be necessarily condoned with the.
Yes, because that's not happening.
But
in the
maintaining a
home.
disorderly household would be
They're
disruptive
yelling
to the
back and
community.
forth across the property.
Yeah.
I don't know if somebody is mentally ill and yelling out, and they're yelling back more aggressively, but it's escalating a
We're
little bit
feeling-
every day.
And it
More
wouldn't,
confined.
it wouldn't hurt to put that phrase like a bug in the ear in the officer's ear when he comes out to take the report. Hey, these guys are doing it consistently, they're maintaining a disorderly.
They know
household.
that, we've talked to the police, they know it's consistently.
Well, I know, but
Yeah, but
I'm
You're
just
saying
make
so
a
that
good
it ends
point.
up in their
Yeah.
report.
Right.
Yeah, on their car.
Or
Agreed.
exactly.
Right.
And the police officers don't necessarily go to their house.
They don't
after
come
they
to us and
stop,
talk to
right?
us.
I get
We're
that,
just
I
talking to the
understand.
dispatcher.
But
They do come and talk to us when all of us are standing in the middle of the street
here's
and
the
we
other
call.
thing you do
Well,
now,
yeah,
if they're
no,
not
you
always
can't
calling,
always do that.
say, could you have the officer stop by my house after he's answered the complaint? And they'll stop by your house.
We were having drive-bys, they were driving by for.
There's
us.
no drive-bys
But
anymore.
It doesn't seem
Not
like
Well,
they're doing that.
You know, we're lucky sometimes to have, I don't want to say how many officers we have on the road, but we don't have near enough officers. on the road to handle everything that has to be handled, so.
And that's why if another group home pops up in our neighborhood, and
Or
the
anywhere,
resources are
anywhere.
stretched.
Yeah,
and
anywhere.
Anywhere, yeah.
Yeah.
Anywhere, really. That's why we were thinking an emergency thing put in place until this can get figured out to stop all group homes, because we already got a saturation of them, to stop any new ones from popping up until this is figured out.
And again,
that's what
that's
we were
the
hoping
Fair
for. I was
Standards,
hoping that was.
that's the Fair Standards Act that the Supreme Court overruled some of the stuff from Michigan, like the one thing you brought up.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'd
that's
like to do it,
federal.
but I can't. I wish I could. I would do it. I would do it tonight. but
Well,
we
and
just
that's where,
I'd
and
walk
that's
out here
where,
feeling good about that.
that's where, you know, the hard thing is it's an election year, but that's where with Riley's office, and when they mentioned at the end that other laws need to be put into place, I think the whole AFC law needs to be looked at, but that's a state level, and then there's federal level even too, because many,
But
many.
that's gonna be extremely long term.
Yeah, that's gonna be extremely long term, but I was starting to read the stuff that Jake was sending and that you guys were, I don't know if it was you who was sending it too, but all the stuff happening over in all the different states actually. I mean, this is a huge issue.
So we have, Tracy, myself, and the Lawrences, we have met with, Representative Riley. We're trying to
Yes, you guys were gonna go to that,
move things forward.
coffee.
We've been.
Yeah, we did.
We've
We
been.
did.
He holds
Very-
meetings in
very-
Lake Orion or
So,
Oxford.
so what are you guys trying to work on with them? Because I did call Riley's office a week or two ago to see if they heard from the Attorney General, see how, if anything's come up since our meeting in Lansing, and they really said that they're still kind of waiting for the Attorney General, but what was your last meeting with Riley? Was it after our meeting in Lansing that you met with
Yes,
Riley?
this was just a couple of weeks ago.
And
And
what
quite
did Riley
honestly, when
say?
we met with him, he seemed very receptive, but he also seemed surprised to hear all of this. Like it was the first time he heard it, which was a little concerning. He seemed very receptive and concerned, but he.
Was Evan?
Like any
like
good
it was-
politician.
Yes.
Evan was not there, it was Adam.
Oh, Adam.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Evan is who I've been dealing with whenever I call.
I called 2 weeks ago and had an exchange with Evan. And I hung up the phone not too satisfied with the results of the conversation.
Well, yeah, that's why I kind of felt is that,
Yeah.
again, they're just on hold for the AG and there's not much that they can do. Because I was asking him different things and
They did talk about drafting some kind of ordinance, but
we talked about a bill.
A
a
bill.
bill.
Well, and that's.
A what? A bill? Yeah, see, that's what we were talking about.
He did say it could take a long time for that bill to go through. 'Cause,
Right.
The process is even more cumbersome than
Right.
our city process, right, of course.
Right.
But I was thinking, you kick it off, he kicks off the bill, I told him, and it'll put people like the criminal that set up shop in our neighborhood on notice. And maybe it'll keep him from going out of bounds as much as he has in the past. Maybe it'll keep him in check. Maybe this, situation will help keep someone like that in check. I hope so, because I live right next door to it, and it's scary, with
Right,
what's
it
going
needs-
on there.
If they need to go to a home, it needs to be in a commercially zoned home.
Yeah, where there's opportunities around for employment,
Mhm.
for, entertainment maybe. but-
Yeah, common sense, like it says, right?
So is Riley working on, I mean, that's where I'd like to, whatever we're doing, or whatever you guys are doing, we need to work together so we're not recreating the wheel every time.
Well, we thought after our meeting that he'd be working on it, but we haven't heard anything.
We haven't heard anything. Tracy has made several attempts.
Weren't we supposed to have a meeting like the very next day with Kathy, but then she got injured?
That's true.
The timing was horrible
And that's
for
where
this,
things,
for us.
right, and that's where
We had a
I,
meeting one day with the senator, or with the representative, and it was a very good meeting, and then the next day, we were hoping to have a follow-up meeting with Kathy and get some traction, and then this once-in-a-lifetime event happens, and it's really,
and that's where I got back last week on Monday, I made the phone call to her, and she was hoping to have some news, so I was kind of waiting, and then when nothing came about that week, and that's when on Monday, Bob said we need to do something this week, and so that's how this came about.
Well, and it's been a
Very
couple of
happy
weeks
with
since we met with them, and we still don't have any kind of
So I
answer.
would just like to know what you guys have going.
You're talking about
so we
from
can
Riley?
follow up with
From
that.
Riley.
From Riley.
Yeah.
Well, it's
So,
still
And
no-
I haven't
maybe we
talked
need to
Riley.
bombard his
I've always
office,
talked to
too.
Evan, but I thought Riley knew what was going on.
I missed that one.
I said maybe we need to bombard his office too with communications.
And
Maybe we all do.
I think I've talked to Dave about this, I know I've talked to Brad about it. One of the things I'd like to try to do, and I've been, that's one of the reasons I was so unsatisfied with the response I got from Evan. Trying to figure out a way to get a petition, a statewide petition, to actually get it on the ballot, that would eliminate this issue, because this isn't just a Brandon Township issue.
Right.
It's a state of Michigan issue. I mean, I don't care if you live in the worst neighborhood in the world, you don't want
Right.
a sex offender living next door to you.
We want it to
Well,
get worse.
so
Yeah.
they told us, and, you know, Tracy and Lisa, correct me, that the petition was not the way to go. That it was changing the bill. They said the petition would take very long time, you had to have a lot of money to get it on the bill, and, you know,
I think it
to
was
get it
like
on the
hundreds of
ballot
thousands
and
of
all of that.
signatures.
They really discouraged that.
I really don't buy it.
I
think
don't,
they
I'm
don't
not
have
buying that
attention.
either, especially in this day and age. Electronic
Yep.
and social media is such, I think you can probably get a couple 100,000. Who's not gonna say, yeah, I don't want these people living next door to me?
Yeah, 10% is a million, right?
Yeah.
10 million people.
But do those electronic ballots?
Right.
I don't know, and that's one of the things I was trying to find out from
Yeah, I think
from
you have to have
Riley's office,
signatures.
and was very satisfied with the reply.
Can I ask a question? Even if they feel and if they do say that he was in violation, does that revoke his license or no?
Well, what it does is, I'm not sure if it will revoke their license, but what I'm hoping it does, and it sets precedence of Laura saying then, because by them saying that he was in violation, then they're saying there should not be people released from correctional facilities in the care of correctional facilities in a residential group home. I can share the section of the verbiage with you that we are looking at. And that would then get them to say that that was a violation during those days that they were there.
And maybe it'll establish a pattern.
And then it establishes a pattern that the Department of Corrections and that third party should not be putting them into residentially zoned group homes. So if he wanted to put them in that home, we would have had to change the zoning of that group home to be commercial. And that's the only way then that they can be there. If we are interpreting it correctly, which every time I read it and every person I have read it interprets it that way. So it's getting Laura to say that and then getting the Department of Corrections to follow that. And that's where we're waiting for the AG to hopefully agree with that.
I don't think Bill Shuey's going to answer that.
Well, no, he's running for governor,
Yeah,
so
that's
and that's
what
why
I'm
it's
talking
not
about.
happening, but I didn't want to wait till January for an answer to start with the new AG.
No, I agree.
But, so, that's where I want to find out and talk to Laura, because if they admit that, yes, he was in violation for that time, then they are saying that that's not supposed to happen, and the only way they could be in a residential home then is if we change the zoning to the home to be commercial. We never changed that zoning to that home. AFCs are allowed to be in a residential area if there's 6 or fewer. Even though it's a commercial business, it's still allowed to be a residential zoning. But it's not a commercial zoning.
Right.
But they're allowed to run an AFC in a residential zoning because of the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act.
See, and it's not just about him losing his license permanently. It's really about him not obtaining, you know, a permanent license at that house. If he committed a violation there, right? I don't care if he loses his license permanently. I don't want him to gain the license because he did illegal things. They can call them errors if they like,
Right.
right?
Right.
I don't want that permanently
temporary license
approved.
To become permanent there.
Right.
I understand
Now
that.
with him.
And that's up to Laura to determine. I can't make Laura's decision, but I
But that's
understand
another
what you're saying.
reason to appeal the
To
decision
appeal
that
the
they
decision,
did have.
because then he made, it was
Absolutely.
a violation at that time.
It
And
matters.
that's what we need, it was
Big
a
time.
violation at
Yeah.
that time.
That has to happen.
So,
Because that'll become part of my Lara complaints. I'd like to know that like in the next couple of days.
So Scott and Dana, is this correct that when you were there with the Lara meeting and everything, the individual that threatened Jake and his family, you know, he's on probation.
I don't know, I don't have the police report, I never heard anything.
I don't understand why.
Yeah, we were told he was on probation for,
You know, I'll follow up with Barbara on that. I've got the information.
I was told we weren't gonna learn anything until, what did they call it? They said until.
Yeah, it's a hearing or
The
something.
hearing, yes, nothing could come out until there was a hearing.
So was it-
whatever I heard, whatever, I have not heard anything from Glover, and I wasn't going to hear anything until there was a hearing, and you can actually get the paperwork. So I don't know if what you've been told is hearsay or true, so I cannot answer you on that. I don't know if Scott can answer you on that.
The answer that we got there is that what's supposed to happen is obviously he's supposed to do a background check on anybody that works there before they show up on site.
Right.
And apparently, you know, they provide something to Lara that says they did just that. Now, it is possible that whoever this person was, maybe he wasn't in the system yet. Who knows? I don't want to speculate because
Right.
we'll be here all night. But if you, and there's no way that we're ever going to prove that he knowingly put somebody that wasn't a known felon, if you will, in to work in his facility.
Do we have to prove that, though? I mean, the fact is, he did it.
but so
And he's
if,
culpable, period.
Like I said, I don't know what happened because maybe the background check, maybe this person was in the system, we could play that game. But in theory, he's not supposed to put any felons working in his facility.
And he's
Not
got
in
to
theory,
be
it's in
on
writing.
probation that he pulled that criminal background check. It's
Not in
got to be
theory.
in the employee file.
Yes.
Well, and I think Laura is supposed to get who's working at the facilities. Like,
Supposed to report it to them.
It's supposed to report to Laura who's at your facilities, who's employed at your facilities, and that you did a background check. If he did all that, I have no clue. I have not been privy to any of that stuff because I don't know if the hearings even happened at. I mean, you
No,
actually.
it's not been scheduled.
so we were told that if he did not do a background check on
That's
this,
a violation.
then that's a violation and that's something that can revoke his license.
Right, but I'm not sure if he did or not.
Typically, what happens with businesses, especially, it's a whole lot different having a government entity do a background check on an employee than it is a private company. For us to do a background check on a prospective employee, we can contact the sheriff's department, run a criminal history on this guy. Private companies don't have that ability, so what they do is they hire out contractors to do background checks. Now, depending on how reputable that company is, they may or may not do a thorough background check. So if they hired a company that did a background check, maybe did something, but reported back to him saying, yeah, we did a background check, he's clear, how can you really put the blame on him? Because he can say, hey, I hired this company to do a background check. So he's gonna be off the hook.
They would hire a company that's shady to do background checks. That's
You know,
kind of
less
characteristic.
reputable companies probably gonna charge less money for
So
doing
this,
that.
But that's his agent, how does that I can't imagine how that releases him from his
He'd have an
culpability or
arguable-
responsibility.
He'd have an arguable position saying, hey, I
He
did
would.
everything, I did everything I was supposed to, I hired someone to do a background check.
Right.
So can the township then file another complaint and ask that question?
Mhm.
Did this person provide background checks
Yeah.
on
We
his
need to answer
employees
that.
before they threatened us?
Wasn't that in the original?
No, it happened after the fact.
Oh,
so
did it?
this
Oh,
police,
okay.
okay, so this police report number that you wrote in your email to us, is this the one you're talking about?
But I also, as I went through these, I think the larceny falls under an issue too.
So-
Honestly, I didn't think, again, I really wanted to avoid talking about specific
Yeah.
people, but it was my understanding that Kathy had written a complaint on a different topic. She had written a complaint regarding the police, the issue that actually ended up bringing police because there was, let's call it a verbal altercation at the
Correct.
end of.
It was
the
after-
video.
Right. I believe
But-
she did two complaints.
She did.
Yeah.
and
This
she's
is
like,
the
this
first
was the
one
first one
here,
that we finally
and he
got
hasn't
the
heard
answer.
back from the others.
Okay.
But the other one, was it about the police report?
It was
No,
about the
I thought it
issue.
was the honey. The second one was about.
Yeah, I thought it was about the, it was actually.
There are so
about-
many.
I'm poaching the better word,
Right.
It was, oh,
So
it's not the motion.
there should be another complaint filed by the township
By the
because
police report.
See, this is where.
asking if the employees have been checked out.
Does
This
it
police
carry-
report was brought up, okay, so at our meeting, we did let Lara know and the Department of Corrections about what happened at this police report. But again, we told them there hasn't been a hearing, we don't have any information, all we have is is that there's a police report in this number. So it was discussed, but they didn't have any information to come back to us on it because they just learned about it at our meeting.
But I don't
We
think it's
told
fair
them
to
about
say
it.
that
that
was not a
Kathy
formal
should have already
complaint.
filed a layer report plan on it. She doesn't even have the information yet.
Right, so I don't think we can file a complaint until there's a hearing and that
So Bob, you will know this better than I do, but, so my understanding was that he had a drug charge, he was on probation for drugs, is that a misdemeanor?
It depends on the quantity of drugs, type of
So,
drugs.
that's what I wanted to talk about.
Depends on the ruling of the
Is that
judge.
If it's a misdemeanor, it doesn't matter about the hearing.
Right.
Because
And-
if he
and-
has a misdemeanor,
right.
he shouldn't.
And keep in mind, he could be charged with a felony, and then in court, they can knock it down to a misdemeanor, just
Yeah, we like
leave
that.
it.
Yeah, it depends on what he
Yeah.
ends up, yeah.
But so, I'll follow up with Barbara on this, I'll do this one with these, just ask. And maybe give me information if he can.
When was the ticket with the altercation?
Whenever we went to Lansing,
When-
it happened
when was
just
that?
before we went to
I think it
Lansing.
was a day or 2 days before the Lansing meeting.
Yeah.
When did we
like-
go to Lansing, Scott?
I'm trying to figure out, I mean, because I think they just wrote him a ticket, didn't they?
Do you know if
Appearance
the hearing's
ticket?
been
Yeah,
scheduled?
appearance ticket, no.
Do you know
Yeah, I think they wrote him just an appearance ticket, which would probably be about a month after, probably
we
would have
went-
been when
we
they.
It's been more than, it's been more
We
than.
went in
It's not
June,
necessary.
before the kids got out of school, because my kids were still in school,
Yeah.
based everything around school.
When was the township board meeting in June? Because you went right after
June
that.
4th was our board meeting, so we went the 12th. Was it a Tuesday?
Don't have it on my
The
calendar.
Yes.
13th, the
It was a
13th,
Tuesday.
the 13th I had a field trip for my daughter, so I went the 12th.
Yeah.
I guess I'm the same day as you.
You did, we went the 12th. Sorry, I was speaking for myself, sorry.
So generally what they do when they set the appearances for those violations, they'll ask the officer's schedule. And the officer might only choose to go to court maybe once every 2 months. So it's really kind of the officer's schedule is when they schedule those things. Because that's when they write out the ticket.
Yeah, isn't it based on his work?
So it's
The
been,
amount of work that he has in the court?
it's been about a month.
Pretty much it's just what is
It's
scheduled.
been over a month.
It's been over a month because
I
today,
thought it was like, a few months it might take. or
No.
something.
yeah, it's been a month and a half. It's been a month and a half. It's been a month and a half since it happened.
Yeah, it might not even have a hearing by now.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So
But
how do we
because of
find
all
this
the,
out?
this uncertainty and all the questions, I think we're talking about like an emergency situation. Can we place a moratorium on group homes in the area until we kind of have everything figured out?
That's what, I guess that's a question that we have to ask Kathy and our attorney. I don't understand, this is all new, like, I've never gone down this route before, so never had to pass any emergency things, I'm not
You
sure.
know what? Here's the answer that I think that you would get from anybody that knows, even though I don't know. Sure, you can go ahead and pass that moratorium, but it doesn't mean a thing, because as you know, these group homes have gone in, the township doesn't know about it until after the fact.
Right.
So how are you gonna stop it? You can go ahead and pass these kind of rules, but they're not gonna have any teeth, because that's not the way
But
it works.
that's where-
It's all hands.
But
on
wouldn't
deck.
it help a little bit? Because, I mean, from this, I'm taking a couple notes, and I'm just thinking, the township, not you guys, the whole township over the years, is a pushover in this respect. And the group home people know it, because they're not gonna go, even though the state can override it, I agree, I'm not saying that.
It's
But
a
if you're the
deterrent.
little baby on the playground,
Right.
and you don't ever push back, you'll always get pushed around.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna go to Rochester Hills, they're not gonna go to Lake Orion, because they know they're gonna get pushed back.
Right.
Eventually, if the state had to, they'd say, okay, Lake Orion, you're pushing too far. But if the
But if you
owner
think about
gets
it,
pushed
I know
back,
this
he's
one-
gonna go somewhere else that he can get away with it.
I know
That's
this
here,
isn't
because
something
there's
that you guys
23 of
wanna
them here.
hear, but we found out about this in June. And we're here at the end of July, and we've already got a proposed ordinance written that
I
might need
got
a.
it in May.
May.
It was
Okay,
May.
well.
Well, actually, I
learned
called the
about it.
township, Tracy called the township in January.
Okay.
January.
And I just say that, this is when I found out about it, and we're moving as quickly as the township can move. I hopefully we're gonna be able to make a modification to this existing ordinance that's been proposed.
So
I don't know for sure.
In here it says it is the owner's responsibility to make sure that he follows both licensing rules and city township rules. So if we put a moratorium in place, isn't it the responsibility of the owner to know there's a moratorium in place?
So that's, I'm writing some notes here, and that's where I think, when you guys are done with your questions, then we need to kind of say, okay, these were their questions, this is who's gonna handle that question. So I've kind of got notes here of what we need to do and who's going to answer those questions. Because obviously we can't answer, we're just for the
And
board
we
members,
appreciate you
but we're
taking
not,
the time to do this.
pardon me?
We appreciate you taking the time
So,
to do this.
we're not voting on anything tonight, we can't pass anything tonight. There is actually 4 of us, but that's not on our agenda, so we can't do anything tonight. We do have a quorum now, but again, our agenda did not state that we were going to do anything tonight. And we don't want to do anything with the rest of our board. They should all be here. So this was kind of to see where you guys stand, look at the ordinance, see what questions we still have, and then who's going to do what, and we're going
And
to
to provide the- what the
attack
time
these
frame
information
would
and
be
talk
for
about the
this
time frame and what's been
ordinance.
happening.
Just so you know, every one of us up here is just as frustrated as you. And obviously not for the same reason, because it doesn't have the same impact on us. I feel like I'm running in mud. I mean, try as we can to get stuff done, it's like, can we move this along? To answer your question, Dave, about the, being a pushover, first thing that came to mind is, whoever would have thought of kids eating Tide Pods? How can you see some of this stuff coming? We didn't know it was out there, we didn't know it was a problem, so if it's never presented itself before.
And we made it till 2018 before it really has ever become an issue before.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna blame, even the old township rules. It's just, now we know that there's an issue and we're addressing it. At least we're not
Right.
ignoring it.
And that's what, I don't wanna put blame, and that's what I said at the beginning, I don't wanna, it happened, there's nothing we can do, we can't change the past. I've been on the board, but I didn't know that this wasn't out there, I can't know everything, and so now that I knew it happened, I wanna do something about it, and I wish something would have been in place, but it wasn't. There's nothing I can do to change the past, but I can help change the future, and that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, all I'm trying to say is that moratorium is a bubble, a temporary bubble that someone has to break. to
But I
get
don't know
in.
how to do, I
So if they
haven't.
could go somewhere else where they don't have to break that,
And
bubble,
I'm
they're just gonna
sorry.
move on.
And I'm sorry I don't know how to do that, and I haven't done that before, so it's not really the best answer when you're in a position, but I'm not sure any of us
I mean,
have
that's
done
If
why
I
that.
could do it, I would do it, but I don't.
Would the
I
district-
don't think it's possible.
Would the district attorney or the township attorney know?
Township attorney would
If-
probably
yeah.
able to answer the question,
He should.
but I'm not gonna try to present an answer to you right now, because I just don't know.
No, I wasn't looking for an answer.
So
I'm just saying,
that question that Tracy just asked, will that go, Scott, with you
I'm-
tomorrow?
That's
to
what,
the
we're-
attorney?
I've made notes
It's
of
in the
everything that we
minutes.
need to find out, so we are going to
I have
sit here and
recorded
figure out
every
who's going to do what.
question that you guys have asked. It is in the minutes, no matter if, and I've been around long enough to know these guys, and they will follow through and ask the questions that you have asked. But even if they didn't, my minutes go directly to the clerk. The clerk has to proof them, and the supervisor has to proof them before they become official
Shouldn't one
minutes.
of us,
How can
So-
the
One of them,
clerk
since they're not
proof the
here.
minutes if they're not here?
yeah, I was gonna say, what?
Well, they proof them for, spelling errors and
Right, and then
grammatical
actually we
errors,
approve
things
the,
like-
and
For
And then they
accuracy.
approve the minutes
Yeah.
before they become official, but they have to prove them.
There's a
So they
camera
will
sitting
be
back
read.
there too.
No, I
We didn't
understand
ask for
that.
it.
So what I'm saying is
Somebody's
I
gonna be
have
looking at that
recorded
TV.
every question that you guys have asked tonight.
Maybe after a
It's
meeting like
here.
this.
So even if they didn't ask, which again, I've been here long enough to know
Right.
that they will be read by at least the clerk and the supervisor.
No, I understand that
So-
part. My question was, so you can put whatever you want in the minutes, and if no one ever follows up on it, that doesn't matter. My question was, Scott is gonna meet with the attorney within the next, what, you said tomorrow? Or
No,
within
I
the
said
next
I
couple
would forward
days?
these questions to Kathy tomorrow.
So,
I'm not meeting with an attorney tomorrow, I have
so
no
whenever
meeting
you
scheduled.
forward the question about changing to fewer than 12 or fewer than 7, will this be added to that group of questions for the attorney? Or is that something that's gonna wait?
About the moratorium?
Yes.
Is that something that?
Well, that's what I
really
wanna
urgent.
get to, that's what, I wanna go through the list I have here, I have the moratorium, I have, the list of the different things here, 12 under, living in, so we can list out our questions.
Owner-occupied.
Yeah, owner occupied, that's what I meant, live in,
Yeah.
owner occupied, so all these questions, send to Kathy tomorrow and get answers. Have Kathy send to the attorney. Now, we can,
And carbon copy Stewart at
and,
the same
and,
time.
and CC Stewart at the
Yeah.
same time, but we need to ask, and yes, we need to get these answers, and we want the answers. We don't want to sit on them, but I can't control Stewart giving us answers though either. I can't make the attorney sit and give me an answer like that minute. He's gonna have to.
Does he
make a
need to get
decision.
lots of emails from us?
Well, he's gonna have to research it too. I mean,
No, I understand that,
as
but-
much as attorneys like to think they're Solomon, they ain't.
They always,
So
well,
they-
they
so
always wanna look up everything to make sure they're.
Yeah, so
advising you
he's gonna have to
correctly.
do his research on it.
So can well, I guess it would be Kathy, can Kathy do another Lara complaint on the impact of this particular group home? And how many times the police have been called out? Because they've been called out several times since you made that report 2 meetings ago.
See, it gets to a point though, is it really, and I'm gonna speak for Kathy a little bit here, is it her responsibility to file a Laura report every time you guys have a problem? Or
No,
should
I'm
that be coming
talking
from
about
you?
on the township level, the strain that it's putting on our police department and everything, because we are such a small, we're such a small population, and we only have so many, you know,
Resources,
2
yeah, right.
police officers per shift
But
or
is
whatever
what-
patrolling.
Okay, but the question that Lara will have is what happened there, is it actually a violation of what the complaint is, or is it just the people in the home are not cooperating? Is it the people in the
Threats?
home? Well, I'm not talking about the threat ones, I'm talking about the one that you guys just had on Sunday night that you don't know who it was that was
Fighting?
arguing.
If you're gonna be yelling at people in the
Fighting,
homes.
yelling in the streets, threats,
I'm not sure if
theft.
that's on the violation list though, of what can remove someone's license, that's what I'm asking. That's where Lara says that there are certain things that a violation is considered where they would consider to remove someone's license. So I don't know if that's an actual violation that they will take in or not.
I think when I said the disruption of the neighborhood, I think that is a.
That is a violation.
It
I'm not
is,
sure
they're
what the
supposed to
violation is.
maintain,
Okay. So-
he should have control over his employees.
So I do have on my list here about doing another, let's see, another complaint regarding the police reports and the hearing. I do have that on my list written down.
But I want to say again, the issue that happened for you on Sunday night, I don't believe it's Kathy's responsibility to file that report.
No,
You guys
I
should.
will be
She
following the,
doesn't-
that's
She
not what I'm
doesn't know what
saying.
happened, you
No,
know.
that's
Wasn't
not
what
what I'm
she said.
saying,
Okay.
that's not what I said. I will file a report for
Okay,
that.
good.
I'm talking about the strain on our police department. Her as a township official, that, you know, she oversees that, she passes the millage and all that stuff. Just the strain that it's, and the impact, just this one home is having on our police department and our, you know, resources.
That's a
Tracy,
township
and
thing, so
board.
it is.
Tracy, were
her
you in contact with Jimmy
responsibility.
Glover?
I'm gonna contact them on those 2, just because.
If I could
On the
impose
2.
on you
Which
to ask
2?
him, because
Oh.
he provided me a listing 2 months ago when I went through the list. He
Yeah.
provided me that listing. If you could ask him if he could provide you, or if he doesn't want to provide you with that information, if he could provide me with the information, complaint number, the nature of the complaint.
Like,
Oh, you want us to about the complaint?
Of all of them.
Since
that time.
since the last one we did, what did you say,
But
2
you
months
still
ago?
have the other one, so you want it, so then you have all the complaints.
Right.
since the opening of
Yeah.
that.
You read that at the June meeting.
Yeah, it's public information, yeah.
You're not, if you're not giving names, you're just giving,
Yeah.
complaint number,
Okay.
report number, and
But
who the
that's
complaint
expensive.
was.
Is to
One
show
more
an
thing.
overall pattern of you know, deterioration of our
Right,
neighborhood.
and
Just to show
again,
an
it goes to
overall
maintain
pattern.
that sort of household disrupting the community.
Yeah, and consistently disorder.
Right.
And that's what I've been noticing. Every day.
And I'm sure Lieutenant Glover will be more than happy to cooperate.
One more thing the attorney might want to know, and I know this was brought up before, but it was a long time ago, so just a refresher. I know you don't want to mention any names, so I guess we could call him like Voldemort from Harry Potter or something. Yeah. He did say to Mike and I, we were saying, well, he said to everybody, but I think we were
We
the
were
only
at
ones
the
that
end of the
heard it.
table, yeah.
We asked him, you know, hey, this is gonna drive the property values down, was the conversation. And he remarked, let me know when yours go low enough and I'll buy it from you.
That came out in our
Yeah,
meeting
it came
before,
out.
So-
and I think.
And if
it
that
was
speaks
actually-
to his intent, if that speaks
It
to
does,
his
yeah,
intent.
it does.
In
Well,
Jake's
then-
house, you know, Dana, what a prime, you know,
Yeah,
that's 2 houses in
crosswalk
one.
and
you know.
everything.
I've talked with Jake and John, and I feel bad, and
Yeah, I talked to Jen last week, but, yeah,
Yeah,
none of us are mad at Jake.
No,
and
I know,
said
I'm not mad
before,
at them.
we
I feel
haven't
bad
talked to
that
him since the
I feel
meeting.
bad that
I think it's awful that they had to do
I
that.
feel bad,
Yeah.
yes.
He told us at that meeting it didn't go the way he wanted it to, he was moving, and when he came home, he packed up and moved, so
Yeah.
haven't had a chance to talk to him.
I certainly, I will never go as far as to
very
say
bad.
I'm as frustrated as you all, because I know I'm not, but I wish there was more that I could do. I feel, this is kind of a stupid word, but I feel impotent that we're kind of stuck, we're doing what we can.
We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
we see
Yeah.
the effort
Appreciate
you
it.
guys are putting forward, going to land.
And I do feel bad, I feel like I should know what to do
Appreciate
more,
it.
but I didn't go to school to be a trustee, I didn't specialize. You know, I came on board hoping I could help with financial stuff, but I'll help with anything, and just because Jake and Jen were my friends doesn't mean that was the only reason why I was doing this, and that's why I'm still here today. You know, I'm doing this for any resident in our township, and, you know, and that's where I kind of feel like it's like a state thing too, and
Well,
I don't,
we appreciate
you
it
know.
because the state has proven they really don't care about us, little people at this level. So we need you guys to care, and you do, and we appreciate you do.
You'd be amazed the number of
And we believe you
conversations,
guys care.
phone and email, that we've had over this, over the last months.
It's a lot,
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Well, it's appalling.
Oh, it is,
We shouldn't,
absolutely.
no, we shouldn't be going through this, yeah, this is,
Scott and I are talking about, trading clothes, because we're such good friends over this.
TMI.
That's your problem.
Good
night, board.
Good night, y'all. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Gotta go.
Thank you for being here.
As far as sticking to agenda, did anyone else want to get up and speak? We're still on citizens' comments.
Well, we just kind of left our quorum too, so.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
I think we've really covered it all.
Well, I think, yeah, we talked about
Yeah.
the licensing and regulatory. B kind of got mixed into A, because that's where I was talking about the license and regulatory affairs report. And then A, the amendment to the ordinances, we kind of talked about as you guys asked your questions. So that covered our discussion. And then you had the ordinance amendment, the complaint, continued nuisance if there's anything else, and then the police report, so I mean.
Do you wish to adjourn?
I'm waiting to see if there's we have another section now for
Yeah,
closing
not
citizens'
really.
comments.
No, we're good, we're good.
Just want to make sure.
And, I talked to Brad, I talked to Dave before, and, well, I haven't talked to Jake since he moved, but you guys have my phone number, call me.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. I will make a movement. Motion to adjourn.
I'll support you.
Thank you, you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, of course.
You know, it's easy when it's coming from there, right?
Were we supposed to sign in, you guys?
There's
There's a sign-in.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, you got Tracy? There's a
Otherwise, we
sign-in
were never
sheet.
here.
Yeah, sign
See?
it's good. Yeah.
Oh, that was perfect. That's exactly what.
What?
Welcome. Dana, are you not going to speak for this?
Is that the ordinance?
Got here. I made the statement.
So,
Yeah, that's the one.
this is.